All right, everybody. Welcome to Domainer Week Day 6. And I'll remember to introduce myself again this time. My name is Arif Mirza. I'm the host of what was the Domain Social, with the last one coming up this Friday. And soon to be, I gotta mute myself. Here we go. YouTube, there we go. Yeah, and soon to be DomainPodcast.com, which will be similar but a little bit different. The transition point is this full week of pretty much domain experts. Today is certainly no exception. The highlight of the week, we have Chris Zuiker, already here, and Kate Buckley coming up at around 2:30. I'm just going to say, for this week, go to domainerweek.com, basically to see the schedule. You'll see the goal of this. It's all free. The goal is to raise some funds for charity. So you'll see the link up there. You can also go to donate.domainerweek.com and you'll see the charity details there. Everything else is pretty simple. Live.domainerweek.com goes to the YouTube channel. Although you're watching on YouTube, like the vast majority of you are, you already know that. And once the streams come live every day, you can refresh the page and the stream will show up at the top. So on that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I've already rambled on all week long, and we are 1 o'clock, and we have one of my personal heroes in the house in the domain industry who has shared so much with this community, not just about domains, but about sales tactics. And if you listen to his what do you say, 800 million podcasts, I think it is.
A gazillion, I say.
Gazillion. Of course,
so
the Z for Zuiker, yes.
Yeah.
And so I just really want to welcome you here. As I said, like you're a really motivating person in this industry. You share a lot of just motivational stuff, but also key information and tricks and tips. And you're working at Media Options, the number one brokerage in the industry. It's an honor to have you here today, Chris. Because you've motivated me many times over the last couple of years.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I just wanted to maybe let yourself introduce yourself, how you ended up finding yourself in this wonderful world of domains.
So it was interesting. I was I got started off in retail sales and managed some big accounts over $100 million and had teams and I pivoted because I got fired and I kind of pivoted into this. It kind of fell in my lap. But the story, so when I think the reason and the frames that I came about were because I had like this, it was like a big push into domaining, right? So I had to really figure it out. I remember the first call I had, I was brokering a really big domain name. It was a .net, like massive domain. This is gonna be in one of my books I'm doing. And, I reached out to all these big companies, actually the domain was lifeinsurance.net. So I brokered that domain. That was one of the first domains I brokered. And it's life insurance, right? It's $1 billion, like massive, huge company. So reached out to some of the biggest companies, and I was very, very comfortable reaching out. And at one point, I made my first phone call on selling domain names, and I called this person up. It was like a strategic digital marketing executive in California, and the phone picks up and hello, this is so and so, and it was her secretary, and I said, I don't know, I don't remember the name. It was like just pick a name, right? Susie, whatever. Is she there? She's like, yeah, let me patch you through. And I'm thinking, wow, I got through. That's crazy. How did I get through the gatekeeper? So we pitched the domain name, and in part of the pitching, she said, Chris, domains are dead. Like they just, there's no need for them. And remember, keep in mind this company, like this is what the company does. Like it's $1 billion company, and it's like right up their alley, right? It's the .net. And so pretty much without missing a beat, I said, okay, if they're dead, like, do you want to sell me some of your domain names? And it was like, no, we don't. But that really started me on this journey. It was like, well, why is it important, right? What is this sales process? What is this sales cycle to domain names? And, why do some companies buy it? Why do some companies not buy it, right? I mean, at that time, it was like SCM, it was all about SEO. And so I had to overcome that. And part of overcoming that, it was, getting into what I call the 7 dimensions to a domain name. Yeah. Which really is like the fundamental reason. And it's this frame. I'm going to use this word frame a lot in this conversation. Okay. So yeah. The frame, It's used a lot in marketing. It's used a lot, with like, coaches, right? But it's a way to explain your theory, explain a topic in bullets, and then it gives you the ability to expand upon that, depending upon the conversation. So, you can talk about it for like 10 minutes. You can talk about it for 10 hours, right? If you have a very strong frame. And that's kind of was my intro, just my introduction into the journey of domain names. I went on to sell quite a few big domain names. I sold my first 7-figure domain name within I think it was like the first 3 months. It was a 2-letter domain name, really good one. Can't share it with you, but it was a really good domain name. And that went much smoother than my first, that first other domain name that I brokered. So that's kind of my introduction to it. Do you want me just to keep talking, Eric, if you have questions?
No, I've probably about a million questions that we won't get to all of them. But yeah, I'm just curious, like how that transition was made from your past life into domains. Like I'm assuming your previous sales strategy kind of got you started, but then you realized that domains are a little bit different, and that's why you started developing those 7 sort of points to help you sort of transition.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over a lot of frames today. This is going to be like a good video.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk about everything. Actually, when I go over here, I'm going to go over fundamentals into domaining, right? So you understand, so like it starts with the fundamental, like why is a domain name important, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go into like the strategies. We're going to go into the buyer types. We're going to go into some general thoughts on pricing your domain name, right? My philosophy and my thoughts based on these buyer types. We're going to go into why domains are important, and then finally some tips and thoughts on selling your domain name. I lost track of the question. What was the question again?
I was just any of those is fine. No, but I was saying just your transition from your previous sales until because you developed these. I'm assuming day one you didn't have those 7 sort of points developed. It took you some time, I guess, that little learning process of figuring out what the rejections were unique to the domain industry versus your previous sales experience. Because to me, it sounds like you were in sales for quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent literally like maybe thousands of hours, like just researching, and like, going through, different sales tactics and how to sell domain names. So, I mean, Jordan Belfort's one of them. I really like him. I think he's got a great course. I'd recommend anyone take it. On selling, Warren Claff, I think he's phenomenal. And that, his book, Pitch Anything. If you haven't bought it, listen to this video first, right? But then buy his book, Pitch Anything, and then flip the script. The 2 best books out there. And then Garrett White was the 3rd person that really impacted me in his thoughts on strategic seduction and this process of like, how do you seduce someone into selling, into buying something? And then the 4th one would be Russell Brunson. But to answer your question, I remember your question. And so I got my career starting selling to Walmart. So I actually lived in Bentonville, Arkansas. I worked for Walmart for a couple of years, went and got my MBA, and then came back out on the other side of the business, selling to Walmart. So I worked for Stanley Tools, I worked for Timex, and then Invent Little Baby Company. But that's much different, right? So these are strategic accounts, right? So I mean, it's much more like a one-on-one. It's much more strategy.
Yeah.
Where domain names is like, it's quick, right? I mean, you may have 2, touch points with the buyer. You may have no touch points with the buyer, right? So it's a much different. And so, yeah, it like, to your point, it's like, it was this like, it's, carrying through some of the same thoughts, right? The same sales, right? But then, I had to learn a different approach, selling quick, selling,
Yeah, because you're coming into, I guess, as you said, the first one you came in, and you're trying to sell these domains. And I guess when you started, you made the transition when?
I don't even know. It's been a whirl, maybe 2015 or so.
I was going to say 5 years.
You can go by LinkedIn and look, it's on there, the timeline.
And so then at that point in time, I guess all the sort of SEO guys in the companies are telling their CEOs, domains are dead. SEO doesn't need domains anymore. And that's, I guess, you started encountering these sort of counters to your proposals. And I guess that's where you started to really think, how do I counter all these things? And that's how you got to
it's really starting with like, why, right? Why do they buy? Why do people buy, right? Why, what's this, it's interesting because in marketing, you hear this thought, process. You have to know your customer. You got to know them better than they know themselves, right? So you can step into that process, and it's this pain and pleasure. It's pain and possibility, right? To sales, right? It's like this dance where you expand the pain, the possibility. And that's not the case for all domains. And I'll get into that in a little bit here when we talk about the buyer types, right? What was the question again? Well, sorry,
just
I'm
about
like,
the
I'm more
transition.
like, I got so much in my brain to get out.
Well,
here.
you can let it all out. You know what? This is remnants of the domain social, and the domain social would go anywhere. But it was just basically in the transition, like your first stage, like until you got to like those seven points you have, those 7 dimensions. Those you didn't have those in day one. I'm saying.
So it kind of evolved naturally, right? It evolved naturally. It evolved with like really getting into like why they buy, the buyer types, and the 7 dimensions came along, and then it was like, okay, it was kind of loose, and then it was like, how do you take this and then categorize it so that it's super simple to talk about with any kind of company, right? So we talk about the 7 dimensions. We talk about category defining domain names as leadership, leverage, and scaling. It's the reason why they buy. Now, the advantage that I had in coming to this industry was that I sold like million. One account was worth $100 million, right? I managed that, right? I sold promotions into Walmart that were worth $20 million, right? So the numbers weren't numbers like no problem with the numbers, right? I get the numbers, right? There's no like understanding the value, understanding 7-figure domain names, but it still came down to like why, like this question of why. And I think that it's really fundamental into any industry, right? Is really getting into understanding that process. When you understand that process, then you can pick good domain names, right? You can price them correctly. When you're on the phone or you're on email, you can sell them correctly, right? And you can complete that sale.
Okay, so I guess we'll you had a couple of things you wanted to share, the the different types and all that. I guess we could get into that a little bit. What was the first thing you wanted to share with everybody?
Sure. So actually, before I do that, what was like in the other videos leading up to this domain social? What's the biggest question or questions you get from your community? What are they interested in? What's the
in terms of the outbound, or
just in general, like what are the biggest themes? I just want to make sure I address them in this hour we have.
I think, well, I mean, especially with you being here, it's just the sales tactics. I think a lot of people who start off domaining are maybe a little bit shy. They don't know how to approach a company or a potential buyer. They're afraid of establishing a price point for fear of either overshooting or undershooting. I think a lot of people who get into domains, they love the magic of domains, right? They're just such these amazing tools for businesses to leverage and expand and enhance their business. However, a lot of people get in, aren't aware of, aren't comfortable in sales. They just don't know what's behind that wall when they pick up the phone or send the email, right? And I think that's the biggest intimidation factor for a lot of newcomers is like, what do we do and what do we expect? I think that's why you're such a thought leader on this, because again, if everybody here go listen to his 80 gazillion podcast,
like 800
bit by bit. It's like it's bite form, right? It's like 10 minutes more or less, and it's every time it's this little thought in this, little thought in that, and a little nugget here and a little nugget there, and if you absorb that over time, you'll have an idea. But Chris has been at this for with domains for 6 years or so, but before even longer. And I think that's where the hybrid of what before, combined with the way you've analyzed everything once you got into domains, has really, I think, made you a leader and somebody that all of us look up to in terms of like just you just go out there and you do it, right? And I think a lot of us are intimidated to get started because we just don't know what to expect.
Got it. Okay. So I would say, I was right there with you. Truly, like my first phone call, right? Is like, and this executive, like they picked the phone up and I was like, oh, wow. Like I'm on the phone now. Now what do I say? Right. And it wasn't successful, but okay. So I think part of being a good salesperson, right? It's interesting because it was Tess that said this when I first started. She's like, listen, it's going to take time. And the more conversations you have, the more belief you have in what you're selling, and that belief, kind of crosses over into what you're selling, and that gives confidence. And I'll frame that in a second here. Okay, my philosophy on selling, but I think before you get there, it's like understand. Let's go over some fundamentals, right? Because I think these fundamentals are important to understanding domain names and interaction. And I tell this to everyone I talk to. I'm like, listen, I love what I do. I mean, this is like the coolest industry in the entire world because it's the intersection of strategy, of scaling, right? And I mean, you're able to talk to some of the coolest people in the world. I mean, literally like billionaires. Like I can't tell you what I talked to, but I mean, I've talked to billionaires. I've talked to, some of the best marketers in the world. I've talked to some of the worst marketers in the world, right? I mean, I've talked to, on both spectrums, and it's super exciting. So let's go over some, I'm going to take you through this here. Obviously hit the Q&A if I'm talking too quick but what I would like to communicate is, to give you some thoughts as far as how to sell, the fundamentals behind it. And I think that'll make, your community pretty strong, because once you get this understanding, it's like light bulb opens, you're like, okay, I get it. So the first thing, and then we'll go over some examples too, and some things that I've done to get to where I'm at with how I can talk. So the first one is understanding domain strategies, right? So why do companies buy, right? Most of the companies buy there's 4 strategies. It's brand, sub-brand, marketing, and defensive in nature, right? So those are the 4 reasons why someone buys. So the first step you do when you get a domain is like, okay, where does it fit in these strategies, right? Is it someone's brand? Is it going to be a sub-brand that they can then, scale and kind of move in the future? Is it a marketing campaign, or is it defensive in nature? They're just trying to keep it from the competition. And sometimes, I mean, that's a real strategy, right? Just to take it off the table so no one can grow there. Now, most category defining domain names. So one of the domain names we sold back today was contentmarketing.com. Sold a lot of category defining, but category defined domain names are about leadership, leverage, and scaling, right? And so this becomes kind of that window into how you're going to talk about that domain to someone. I mean, you have to come to that realization. If someone has a brand and they have an amazing brand, and your domain name, listen, they're not going to replace your domain name with that, their domain name. They spent millions and millions and millions, all this equity in for your domain, right? But it could be a marketing campaign domain, right? Now that means different things for pricing, right? That means different things for, how you pitch it. That means different things for timing, So, when, if it's a market campaign domain, the reality is that, it's timing, I mean, think about how the corporations work, right? Most corporations, like right now, this month, August, September is like the lowest month for us as far as engagement. We have had a lot of engagement this year, but that's just because the market's picking up. But because most people are on vacation, right? Yeah. And then they come back up, right? So it's the cycle of corporate America, the cycle of most companies, okay? They come back up, they do their strategic planning, they do their budgeting, they come, then they execute it. So what we see is Q4 and Q1 are the biggest months. Q1 is actually the biggest quarter of the year for us, okay? Yeah. I think it's the biggest quarter of the year for most domainers, most, in the industry, because like the budget frees up, right? Boom, they buy it. Yeah. They're strategically thinking about it and they take it down. So I would say when you look at your domains, where do they fall within this? Is it a brand? Is it a sub-brand? Is it marketing? Or is it defensive nature? Now, you look at like domaining.com, you look at a lot of the information that's out there. Most of the cool stuff, right? The candy, it's a brand that's upgrading to the raw version of their brand, right? So that's why I always say in my videos, like, we help companies acquire the raw version of their brand, right? Yeah. And I struggle. It's like, well, how do you explain that? I mean, it's their brand, right? But then, so I came up with that phrase, the raw version of the brand. I don't know. Is there a better way to say it? Maybe.
I like it. It's like saying like it's like Fred's restaurant, and instead you get Fred, right? Or Fred's or whatever it is. It's a shortest, easiest, most communicable version of the brand.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so those are the companies you're looking for, right? You're looking to. I mean, most companies are looking to shorten their brand. They're looking to get that shortened brand. I mean, if you think about just how a startup operates, and we'll go through the buyer types now. But most startups, they can't get it, or they're not in tune with that. And so what happens is that what do? They pick their brand in a descriptor, right? Yeah. Or they pick a my or a try or a get, and then their brand, right? Or they pick the industry, or they pick something else. Now, There's one word domains, but some of the best 2-word domain names are ones in my mind. Okay. I mean, okay, it's both, right? A good 2-word domain name can be the brand and the descriptor. Okay. And you can sell it as a domain investor, but the one I'm just thinking from the end user standpoint. Okay. Are the ones that have, it's like two words that it's not that descriptor in there. And I'm blanking on one now. I mean, media options is a great one,
Okay. Yeah.
But that it's a so it becomes like their own thing. Okay. So most
it's unique sort of character. Yeah. Unique.
Yeah. I'm thinking like, let me go over some here. Like, let's see here. Blackcrows.com.
Okay.
New Zone, base bill. I'm going to go over some examples from Name Bio in a second here.
Yeah.
So, okay. So so we talked about 4 strategies, right? And now we're going to go into the buyer types. Okay. Because each of these, it's important to understand the different buyer types and how they integrate, how they in my experience. Okay. And you can feel free to disagree with me if you want, but how they think and how they operate, because that's going to determine the best way to sell it. Okay. So I actually came up with this. I've been thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this. And this was my kind of my thesis that I came up with maybe beginning of this year. And I really kind of articulated this thesis and wrote this down. So the 5 different buyer types are, the first one is the hobbyist.
Yeah.
The next one is I'll go through these in more detail. The next one is the solo/regional entrepreneur. The next one is the national entrepreneur. Okay. A national company. Okay. I'm sorry, a national company brand. Then it goes to like a Bible, and then it goes to high rev. Now if you look at this, like a triangle, like a chart, it goes from like the price of the domain names. I'll use my picture in the background here, right? It goes up like this, okay? So as far as the pricing goes, but if you look at the amount of companies, it's like this.
Opposite, yeah.
So everyone thinks they want to go after this, like this high rev, business serial entrepreneur, and the reality is that there's only so many of them. There's only so many of them. There's only so much, there's only so much out there, and most domain names just aren't that. So let's. Is this good?
This is okay. Perfect. Yeah. So that's what the I didn't catch the 4th type you said there.
Okay, so it's the 4th type would be viable, scalable. So these are the companies you see that have raised money, right? I mean, their mission is like, man, listen, they're launching, they're skipping the first 3 stages. Think about this as like the evolution of a business, right? The evolution of this business comes, it comes from. They kind of go through this natural progression, right? Some businesses do. Now, Bible Scalable, it's like they compile the team, they get the funding, and their first entry in the marketplace is like, boom, like they're starting, already moving like 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, the ones that get like a big idea and a big funding at
the funding and like, and they're like skipping these other stages, right? They may do a beta test, but like they're coming out hard, or that beta stage is super small because they get the idea, there's money flowing in. Yeah. That's your Bible scale. So the first one is the hobby business, and this buyer type is going to spend anywhere from like $0 to $7,000. So if you think about like GoDaddy, you think about any of their platforms. One of the things they say, I think GoDaddy shared, they have some amazing videos. I would say go back and look at the NamesCon videos they did the last 3 or 4 years. They did some really good ones, and they said their average sale is like $2,000 to $3,000, right? The average sale, right?
Yeah.
That's the hobbyist, right? They wake up, they're thinking it, they're drinking beers with their buddies. They're like, I got this idea, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to, maybe it's a lawn business or something, they have some money, right? They have a career, they have a job.
And as long as their credit card is reached before that pops out of their head.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Right. They're it's impulsive, man. It's like they're just thinking about this business, and they're going to type in the domain name. They're not going to look at 30 different options. Well, maybe they kind of go through like, I like this one. Is it available? They're not familiar with domain names. They see it. There's a buy it now price on FD or, Dan.com or GoDaddy, right? And they put their credit card in and boom, they buy it, right? So with this buyer type, it's important to have a buy it now price. It's important to make it easy for them. They're not going to sit there and It's not going to be, in most of them, it's not going to be this process of like thinking over and over again. In fact, if they think too much, they're going to walk to a different option, right? Because there are a lot of options today. Okay. You think about Brand Bucket, right? I mean, a lot of the sales there are these made up domain names, some cool ones, but listen, there's a lot of options.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's a ton of options. Yeah. Do you spell it 2 T's or 3 T's, or do you spell it with, do you leave the A out or leave the, 2 R's, I mean, there's just so many different variables for this buyer type is that, listen, they're going to walk. And so, there's people in this industry that make a lot of money just selling to this buyer type. Their average sale is $3,000,
I'm one of those people. Just
that's a very viable and a very
good
business. But the thing is that if your domain name attracts this buyer type and you're trying to price it at the buyable scalable, they're never going to buy it. It's like maybe one in 3 million, right? Or 300 million, right? I'm thinking about that scene on Dumb and Dumber, where he's like, I don't know if you've seen that movie, but he's sitting there with the girl and he's like, it's like, is there a chance? She's like, she's like, no. He's like 1 in 100. He's like, no. He's like, 1 in 1,000. Like, no, like 1 in a million. She's like, you're saying there's a chance,
Yeah.
Pretty funny scene. So, I mean, if you price it out, I think from a domain investor standpoint, is like, you got to understand where your domain's at. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you can't look at the top end of that spectrum. Okay. Is it 0 to 7,000, right? But there's a number in there that then there's other options. Okay. And you price yourself out because other options open up. Right.
Yep.
So that's a hobbyist type impulsivity, or, they're looking for that quick purchase, right? And, your slogans of, it has this many searches. I mean, yeah, it could help, but I mean, in the reality is that it's a feeling, it's a gut feeling, they're just, the next type is that regional solo entrepreneur. So the solo entrepreneur is someone, let's say, like me, right? You got fired. You're like, oh man, what am I going to do? Right. Or like you're maybe in an organization, a big company, and you're like, okay, I'm going to start my own business. Right. And there's pressures behind you, and, you're looking, they'll spend anywhere from like $15,000 to $25,000, right, on a domain name. They have limited funding. They're probably using their own cash behind it. To get behind it. It's not a business. Maybe they don't have like really solid revenues, but they went from that hobbyist and they're getting traction, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can do this, and they want to get that, right. Or it's the regional business. So in this area we have 3 cities called Northwest Arkansas, similar to probably wherever you're from. And, they're starting out, maybe they're putting more stores in, and, they're talking to their, they're starting to get into their SEO team, right? They say, we need some local SEO. We need this. And they're like, hey, your domain name is 15 words. You might want to shorten that if we're going to do this, right? And so, maybe they get that recommendation, right? And so they look to, they're getting, there's something that came in. Maybe they hired someone, right, that came in, and they're saying, hey, you need to, upgrade your digital footprint. And so they have that flash, that aha moment, right? And that's where, or they're listening to a podcast like this one, and they say, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I understand. I
need that. Yeah. Yeah. And so that, typically is in the, this could be like realtors, it could be insurance people, it could be furniture stores, think about that kind of thing, right? The realtor that's starting out, they're maybe that's like, I don't know, they're looking for creating their whatever the new trend in real estate is, right? New like teams, whatever, right? And they're looking to get that. From there, you go to national, and this is maybe your bigger chains, but same thing. Like in all of these instances, there's an inflection point that takes place, right? It's timing. There's something catalyst that takes place that draws them to think about needing a domain, right? Needing to upgrade the domain, right? Now, one of the things we do at Media Options is that we insert ourselves into that equation, right? We bring it and we make that domain visible to them, right? And say, hey, this is an option. But the reality is that, so I'm going to sidetrack here a little bit. Keep me on topic, okay?
Yeah.
So the sidetrack here is that I look at selling in 3 ways, okay? There's like 3 parts to it, okay? It's worldview, self-view, and roadmap, okay?
Okay.
So in each of these instances, the first thing you're coming up to someone is this worldview. Okay, this worldview says domains aren't important. Okay. I'm okay with this domain. I'm okay with this do TLD. I'm okay with whatever, right? Because it's not important. And so, part of what we bring to this conversation is you have to like, boom, punch that worldview in a nice way, okay, in a way that keeps the conversation going, but to say, no, what you think of domain names is wrong, okay? What you think of domain names for your company is wrong because they're actually fundamental to your online strategy, okay? They're fundamental to your branding, okay? And, that's the worldview, like, in every case, right? So in the sales that happen instantaneously or the sales that happen with inbound leads, well, guess what? Somebody broke that worldview for them, right?
Okay.
You didn't do it, right? It was an investor. They went in and the investor's like, are you kidding me? Your domain's like, you're like, you call yourself this, but your domain's this, and there's other companies out there like this. You're crazy, right? And they get beat up and they're like, yeah, okay, we got to acquire this, right? Now that's the most compelling, it's truly the most compelling thing that you can have is to have that happen. Because that's like a burning fire under them, like, okay, yeah, we need this domain name, right?
Yeah,
that's worldview. Like somewhere along this road path, that worldview is it says, hey, we need this, right? It's very quick with the hobbyist, with the sole entrepreneur. It's a little bit more, take some information, right? And then as you go up, it takes a little bit more information. It's much more strategic, but there's something along that lines that creates that worldview. From there, it's self-view. And self-view is this belief that I can do it. And so it's interesting because we talked to a lot of like really strong founders, okay? And we pitch them the domain name and we're like, hey, this is what you need. It's to be able to scale. And guess what? There's all these other companies out there. There's 45 different trademark classes. The first thing they say, well, I got a trademark. So congratulations, I've got one too, and there's 45 different trademark classes. And guess what? Another brand can launch on this.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're gonna own the positioning, and you're gonna have to forever say we're this, we're not that, right? But they don't believe it. Okay. And so what happens is that, I see this happening in domain sales. Okay. And this is why, okay, I'm gonna like make another tangent here. We'll jump back again. Okay. But this is why your objective when you're selling your domain name is to get it on their like outbound sales. Okay. Is to get on their radar. Okay. You're not going to sell them in the first call. You're not going to sell them in the first email, but it's get a conversation going and to keep that conversation going. Okay. Keep it going in such a way that it's not like, hey, if you ever email me again, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to do whatever. Keep that animosity, right? There's a way to do it. Andrew's he's the best negotiator I've seen. He does it in such a way where it's like, he beats you up and then he likes you at the end. You're like, oh, okay, this is great. He's amazing. He's amazing. Yeah, so,
Andrew Rosner,
Andrew Roser,
just in case, because there's gonna be tons of people rewatching on YouTube. It's
Andrew Roser, CEO of Media Options.
Yeah.
So, but it's that self-view, like they have to believe that they can do something with that. And until they believe that they can do something with that, then they're not gonna buy it. Okay. And so this is the sales process that we go through. Okay. It's like worldview. Hey, you can do it. And so you see this in marketing. What's the typical thing you see in marketing? Reviews.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, look at these other companies. They did it. You can do it too. Right. When you get up to the 6-figure investments, well, that's a big investment. And so, to say, they have to believe that they can do it. Like, okay, I can get this. I can get this return. And I believe in what I'm building to such an extent that nothing's going to stand in the way to me owning my brand. And that's powerful. Right. And that's when they buy it. And then the roadmap is like, well, how do you buy it? Right. Use escrow.com, use dan.com. Like, what's the method to make sure it's easy, right? So that's the next thing that can trip you up is that, there's this like, well, hey, I don't, there's got to be trust to make it easy. Hey, it's a 3-step process, right? Escrow.com is a 3-step process. It's super easy, right? You get it in, boom, 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 you're done, right? It's escrowed, or dan.com, super easy process. You get in there, the payment processor there. It's easy, right? Okay. So, keep me on thought here.
We're at the three things within the 5 different types of companies.
We're going deep.
I'm trying hard.
I know, man.
Your mind just amazes
So I went,
me,
but see, this is fun. So this is deeper than just saying, hey, send this email out, right? Right.
Yeah.
It's deeper. It's like, because it's like a belief in what you're selling. Okay. So, so the question there is, where does your domain name fall in this? Right? Where does it fall? Who's going to buy it? Who's the best buyer to buy this? Right? There's a timing element to this, right? So in each of these, there's a timing element. Okay, it's this evolution of a brand, right? So what you see when companies buy a domain name, it's an evolution, right? They're going from this step to this step to this step. Okay, they're stepping up, and there's that timing is when you see domain names like them reach out. Okay, they just got funding, right? They got a new team involved, right? They have a team that understands domain names, understands marketing, right? And so it's on both sides, right? There's timing, like they're going after it, but at the same point, if you make it too difficult and it's priced well beyond or this or that, they're going to walk, and sometimes they don't come back, right? So a great example of this was, so we had an offer on the table. I was working on acquisition, and we offered like it was a domain name. It was missing the vowels, okay? Like, you know, it's one of those domains, okay? It was good. It was good, okay? A company had launched on this. There was some equity to it. They pivoted, and so it was out there. We offered like 200, 300,000. Then we went up to their top at $500,000. The company wanted $1 million, like 1.2, and they came down to $1 million. And you know, I was like, listen, they're just capped. But I said, when I talked to the owner, I said, listen, if you would have come to me and said, hey, I want to sell this, I said, I probably would have told you it's worth $5,000 to $15,000, right? Yeah. Because it fits within that, or maybe like 15 to 25. Okay.
Yeah. That range. That
regional solo. I said, you could probably stretch it for the best buyer at 75,000. But I said, my client's offering you $500,000. Like this is like that voice.com sale. Okay. This is like to the extreme, the best offer you'll ever receive on this. And I get it. You think if you want to build on it, great, go for it. If you think you can get a better return on investment there, but from a domain standpoint, an asset standpoint, this is the best offer you're ever going to receive. Right. And so I was like, okay, you know, let's just, you know, thanks. It's not going to work out. So I moved on. And I didn't touch base, you know, my buyer was looking for their options, right? We didn't, I've got a good relationship with them, but they are also looking at options to the side. So he came back to me a month later and said, hey, Chris, you know, I'm thinking about selling it now. Like we can get our head around that. You know, can you get them into the high six figures? And I was like, listen, I haven't talked to them in a month. I don't know. You know, that was their top offer. I don't think they're going to go higher. Yep. And then, you know, he came back to me, so I'll reach out again. I said, I haven't talked to him. I don't know, you know, like people move on. He came back and said, okay, Chris, you know, is that offer still on the table? Well, in the meantime, I heard back from our buyer. He's like, Chris, we moved on. We bought another brand, domain. Like we had to make a decision. Yeah. No longer want that. Yeah. That offer was off the table forever. Right. Yeah. Now this is an extreme example of a brand, but this happens with marketing and it happens at different varying degrees. And so, you know, it's this dance with negotiating your domain to say, okay, well, what is the best offer I'm going to receive? Right. Is this a good time to cash out? Right. Your domain could be worth, you know, I talked to one person, he emailed me, I did a post recently on LinkedIn. He's like, Chris, you're spot on, man. He's like, I had a $5 million offer on my domain name. And he said, I went for 8 and they walked. And they told me the domain they bought and it's off the table. Never get it. You know, I talked to another guy who had, he had an offer like of $10 million, like 10 years ago. This is back, you know, obviously different timing, right? This intro. And he said, we held out because it was whatever. And he said, we haven't had another offer yet. And like, you know, I threw it to Drew and he's like, man, that domain's worth 100,000 maybe, you know? Yeah. So it's timing. And that's the thing is that like, just, it could be the one of the best domains in the world, but there's still a limited number of people with that kind of money ready to spend for a domain. Well, it's timing, right? It's timing. Now I'm not trying to say, hey, sell it and go cheap, right? Because that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is that know your domain, know the value, know what it's to get across the finish line. If you hold up and you put your domain name in this other galaxy, well, chances are you're not going to sell it. Now, that being said, we've had some phenomenal sales from owners that held out. They said, no, I want this, right? They knew fundamentally, right? There's different cues as far as why that domain name is important. Okay. So you get offers on it quite a bit, right? The first question I ask people coming in, I say, well, hey, how many offers have you received on this? What's the highest offer? Yeah. If I hear, hey, Chris, we really haven't had any offers, I'm like, okay, you know, I get it. Right. But let's talk about the pricing here. You know what I'm saying? Like you should get offers in, you know, it's a symbolic, right? Side note to the side note, my thoughts on domain values are 3. I look at it in 3 buckets. Okay. So I'll explain it. Raw equity, brand equity, perceived equity. Okay. Yeah. We'll come back to that in a second here. So, Okay, so the third buyer type is that national, $35,000 to $75,000 is, in my experience, kind of what they'd pay. Can they stretch? Yeah, they can stretch. You can stretch that, right? But that's kind of their mindset. That's their budgeting. That's kind of what they're thinking. And in each of this, there's this like a bell curve. Okay, so it's actually not a bell curve. It's probably a slanted curve like this, right? Where it's like what they'd like to pay to like burning desire. I have to have this domain, right?
Yeah.
And there's very few companies that have this burning desire. But when you get it, it's phenomenal. It's like the best sale in the world. Voice.com, $30 million, right? It's phenomenal, right? So that's kind of the negotiation. You want to kind of, you want to look at that desire there. The next level is that viable, scalable. This is these are companies that they're startups. They're all on the internet. They're in fast-paced industries. They have funding behind them, and they're looking to start off like
on the right foot.
Well, at like 60 miles an hour, right? They're looking to jump all these steps, come out of the gate with phenomenal branding, phenomenal, everything, right?
Yeah.
They're willing to spend that, and they have the investments behind them to buy that, right? Yeah. And then from there, you go to your serial entrepreneur and your high revenue companies, which, the reason why, they'll pay from $350,000 up, because guess what? They can plug that into their system and generate cash. Okay. They can plug it in there and immediately start making money. Okay. And so that's why they're able to pay that, right? Because they can justify the return on investment. They get it. They've done it over and over again. They're only interested in creating the best companies in the world. Okay. So where does your domain fall? Right. I mean, what's this buyer type, right? As you move from like that regional to like, I think what I see, there's some catalyst, like worldview changes sometimes as they're moving up, right? It's not, they're going to say, hey, we're moving from regional to national, right? But there's this evolutionary process. They're like coming in, hey, we need to do online marketing. We're getting handed it to us. Our SEO is horrible, this and that. And they start thinking and their worldview changes, right? So some examples of this are, so what I did is, I think it's a great exercise for everyone to go through. I actually pulled, in part of my thesis here is I pulled name bio. I wanted to like test this thesis. Am I right? Am I wrong? I know from my conversations, I've got a pretty good idea, right? Mm-hmm. So I went to name bio and I pulled sales for like the last couple of years. Okay. I'm sure everyone's familiar with name bio. You can go and see what kind of domains sold for. Yeah. A lot of the higher end domains aren't on there because they're on NDA, but you get an idea, right? Yeah. So, for instance, an example of a company that moved up was paystubs.net. They bought paystubs.com for $69,000 via Uniregistry back in 2020, right? They're upgrading their brand, right? The RedX, 86 employees. They bought redx.com through GoDaddy for $60,000, right? Yep. Side note is when you do this, you can also see trends that are out there, right? Trends as far as branding and what's the recent trend. Stairs.com was acquired by allthingstairs.com. They went to Stairs. They bought it for $67,000. That was a phenomenal sale.
Wow. Yeah.
Fiber without the E, FIBR.com sold for $75,000, right? It's a small online business, right? So it kind of fits that narrative that I'm saying, right? They were that national kind of small, business, $75,000, right? $67,000, right? These national companies. Angel City, we are angelcity.com. Before that, they bought it for $60,000. Capsules.com was bought for $50,000 by IFA Capsules, IFACapsuleFillers.com. Helpware.io was sold for $35,000 via Domain Market for $35,000. Let's see here. Dogchef.com was sold for $30,000. I think that's kind of that solo entrepreneur, right? Yep. So it started to kind of come to fruition for me, right? As I looked through this. Now, is everything go through this lens? Of course not, right? But it's a frame to look at things. Okay. And I started seeing patterns out there. Wiz.io sold for $28,000. Ease.io was sold for $28,000. That was an upgrade from easeinc.com.
Really?
Rackspeed.com sold for 28,000. That was rackspeed.de. They upgraded. Let's see here. Let's see, studying.com was sold for $28,000. That was once again a solo entrepreneur, right? So you start seeing these patterns, right, that are out there. So, wow, I've talked a lot here. What else we got? You want to take questions or?
Well, I mean, I think you're at the equities. We got to the top of did we get to the top of the 5 types? Yeah, I guess the 5 types of buyers and stuff. Yeah, you're saying that there's a three types of equity.
Okay, so it's how I look at domain valuation. Okay, so I look at it through this lens: raw equity, brand equity, and perceived equity. So raw equity is like is just the raw value of that domain, right? So I mean, like quilt.com, for instance, it has 150,000 exact match searches a month at like $2 CPC or whatever it is today, right? That's raw equity. People are talking about it, right? They're searching it. There's this momentum that's out there. So what you see is that domains that have good raw equity have inherent value, because you're basically what you're doing. You buy that domain for a brand is you're buying the equity.
Okay.
You're buying that goodwill that's already out there in the marketplace behind that, like the feeling that name generates.
Yeah.
You're buying the idea and you're basically inserting yourself into that idea with your brand.
Okay. I know for myself, I was really intrigued with your the sort of 7 dimensions of
you're gonna make me go there, aren't you, man?
You know what? We'll go through them quick. I want to hear you.
I think we're out of time. I think we're out of time. We're gonna have to do this again some other time. Yeah. I don't know. How much time do we have left?
We still have another. If you want, we could go another 40 minutes. But 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever's good for you. Okay. The next one starts at 2:30, and I have nothing planned in between. I'll just say hello to everybody. But if you have to go, it's no problem as well. If you had a hard stop. But if you did you have time to go through them a bit? Or?
Yeah, no, we can go through them. Right. We can go through them. Okay, so we hit foundations. We hit the strategy, 4 strategies. We hit buyer types. We hit domain valuation briefly, and now it gets into like this why, right? Why are they important, right? How do you talk about them? How do you how do you break the worldview? Right? How do you talk about that? How do you, it's one thing to say, hey, break the worldview, domain names are important, right? And there's certain things we say, like domain names are like real estate. It's the top real estate, but then it's like, it's New York City, but then you're like, okay, is it Broadway or is it something off of Broadway? Like it's not, what I found is that analogy only goes so far because people are in different regions, it doesn't hold true to what they're building, right? It makes sense. But in essence, like you want to get to something that's deeper. You want to get to something that really makes them think. And so that's why I kind of formulated and created this 7 dimensions to how a domain name impacts a brand. I've got a book coming out. I'm like 75% done. I just got to finish it. It's going to go over this in detail with many more stories. So you can look out for that at my site, chriszuiker.com and mediaoptions.com. So, so basically what I do when I reach out on domain is I try to figure out like what are the top 3 dimensions that are going to be the most important for this company, that are going to really like resonate and be like really important, right? Now keep in mind that there's 7 dimensions to domain name, but there's also the 3, the 3 strategies for category defined domain name, right? Those 3 dimensions. Okay, that's leadership, leverage, and scaling. So when I talk and I'm reaching out on a category defined domain name, it's like, listen, they have their brand, right? But it's about leadership. It's about saying, hey, we're the leader in this industry. By default, we own we own the very keyword that defines our industry, our passion, our mission, and what we do. Okay, that's establishing leadership and trust, right? Which is the essence of brand equity, right? It's getting your foot in the door. Okay, that's leadership, right? Leverage is saying, and I'll hit the 7 dimensions in a second. This is kind of fun. Yeah. The second one is this is also part of the 7 dimensions, but it's a little separate. Okay.
So 1.5.
Yeah. The next one is leverage, right? Reality is this: most companies have to scale, right? And as they scale, well, guess what, right? How are they going to scale? And a category defined domain name, one that's closely related to their category, is sometimes the best opportunity they have to scale, right? So it's like, well, hey, as you go to scale, what asset allows you to like immediately scale with something that's intuitive and that immediately fits right into your brand ethos and mission? There's nothing out there, right? You think you got category defined, leverage is you're leveraging all the goodwill and momentum out there in that keyword, and you're capturing it, right? You're capturing that momentum. So, okay, the 7 dimensions. The first dimension is global positioning, and I came to this dimension because I was looking at, well, intuitively know, .com is king, right? We say that, but why is that, right? Why is that? There's 2 studies. One is Reese, and I always forget. It's not Reese and Reese.
Oh, I've heard you say this a few times. I should even know it by now.
I think it's Reese.com. Go to Reese and Reese. I actually have their book, the new book that they put out on branding. I mean, super cool study done in the 70s, and was saying that, we categorize things in our mind, right? So when someone says, hey, name the top 10 cars, well, you're going to categorize them in some way. That makes sense to you, right? It's how the human brain thinks. Right, we categorize things. We have to, or we'll go insane. Right.
Yep.
When someone says, name, give me 10, 5 car companies, 5 car makes. Right. You're going to say what's important to you.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, we do that in everything, and it's just how the human brain works. Right. And so So that was kind of the thesis behind that, was that we rank things, and ranking is very important, and you want to get up there in the ranking, and then they go into more detail and more depth. The other one was Segal and Gale, and that's the simplicity index. And they say basically there's like $40 billion left on the table every year, or something to that effect. I think it's actually simplicityindex.com. And that, companies create too much confusion, right? So a story here with actually, I think the best story I've seen, there's 2 stories I'll tell. One is with workforce.com and workforcesoftware.com, right? This is global positioning. Like, why every company needs to own the global positioning, right? So from a domain standpoint, let's say you have a portfolio, you have the .com, the .org, the .io, the .ai, right? Yep. Drew's talked about this before. Like, listen, you want to sell some of those smaller ones off so that you get, you get companies out there that are building, and that'll buy the .com,
future,
right?
Yeah, future big customers, yeah.
Yeah, so you want that out there, right? Because those are the companies that upgrade later on to the .com. Now, if you're a company, you want to buy them all because you want to keep out every bit of noise around your brand.
Yeah.
Because it's a big risk, right? It's
distractions. Even if you have other industries, I think it's a distraction if they.
Well, it's a big risk, right? Let's say there's a scandal at this company, the IO, and they're saying that and they're saying that, but then you're over here, and I forget what company it was I just came across, but literally on their site they said, "Hey, we're not this company."
Yeah,
that's not, because there was a scandal in that industry. Yeah. They had to literally say that because they didn't own. There was that confusion, right? They let another company come in. So. Workforce.com and workforcesoftware.com, right? So 2 different companies in the HR software space with I think timesheets or something like that. And, this other company came along and they acquired workforce.com. Workforcesoftware.com launched back in the 90s. Really good track record, great product, but they didn't own Workforce Software. Now, this other company thought strategically. They said, hey, we're going to buy the whole company. So they went out, I think they bought the whole company. And then they relaunched their version of Workforce on workforce.com. Now, if you go to these 2 sites, I would say, hey, go and check it out. You can't tell the difference between them. I don't know. I know there's a pending litigation, so I haven't checked it in the last couple of weeks, but before when I checked it, like, you couldn't tell the difference. So think about this, right? Workforce Software, overnight, their business is like shot. Overnight, you can't tell the difference between the 2. So they're like, we're workforce. How many customers are going to workforce.com? I wouldn't be surprised if this continues. They rebrand or they go out of business. Yeah. Major impact to their brand, right? Because they didn't own the global positioning. They were workforcesoftware.com. Okay. That's global positioning. Now that's in the same industry. Another industry is Kraken.com. I talk a lot about this one. Okay. Yeah, 15 years ago, there was Kraken.com. There's Kraken Rum. Kraken Rum launched. They were launched on the Kraken Rum. They spent like $13 to $15 million in initial marketing. If you extrapolate that over the time, let's say they spent like $50 to $70 million in marketing, right? And they were like, we're okay with KrakenRum.com. Now, I know this industry because I brokered to them, and that's how they think. It's like, we don't need it, right? But yet they spent $70 million, right? $50 to $70 million. Let's say on the low side, $30 million, right? Well, this little company called Kraken comes along, And I'm sure they're thinking, Kraken, crypto exchange, whatever, it's not important, right? Because back in the day, it was nothing, But now if you type in Kraken, they dominate everything for search. They dominate it. They dominate the brand positioning for that. And yet this company, Kraken Rum, has spent how many millions of dollars marketing their domain?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, marketing their product.
Yeah, and I guess at first they say it doesn't matter, but it does. Like if something happens in the crypto space, it does.
Well, this is an
matter.
ROI conversation. Okay, it's a return on investment. You can't, if they could go back 15 years ago and buy that domain name for like $250,000, $100,000. I don't know how it would sold for. Okay, they go on back and buy that and keep all this noise out.
Yeah,
you think they would do that? Of course they would. Of course, yeah. If not, they'd be fired.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I tell most of these founders. Like, my marketing team doesn't say what you need. I say, I should fire them. Like, get rid of them right now. I literally told it to people too. I just fire them. Like, get rid because they don't know what they're talking about, right? Domain names are fundamental. So in this case, like they did direct response marketing, okay, where they put money in, they get it out, but they don't have any lag to their brand because they don't own the global positioning. And that's what happens, okay? When you don't own what you need to, this is like, I think the biggest one is global positioning.
Yeah.
Okay. For a brand, right? Now is it important for that solo entrepreneur? Probably not. Okay. It is important, right? But as you go up, it becomes more and more important, right? It's important to not create confusion, but do they need to own, quilt.com if they're only going to do 100,000 in revenue and that domain name is like priced, 3, 5x, 10x. Of course not.
Yeah, it's just out of their brain.
The ROI is not there. But so there's rationality behind this. But you need, every company that's growing and scaling, they need to own the global positioning. You have to create a simplistic and an effortless path for your customers. Okay, and if you don't, what happens is that that impacts your brand equity, right? This thought of trust and loyalty, conversion, and be able to come back and be able to say, hey, don't go over here, go over there. Recently I've seen some companies that, they put some, pretty, crazy things on their site. Okay. And they don't own the other companies that have launched have owned on .io, .ai, or whatever. And, listen, that impacts their brand, right? Because people go to this one, they're like, whoa, hold on a second, right? Filter, right? And they don't own that, right? So, owning your global positioning, I say is the biggest risk that a brand has to their ability to scale. Super important, right? Global positioning. The next one is industry positioning. That's industry positioning. That's how you rank within your industry. And that's super important, right? So, back to the Seagal, back to the Reese, I say Reese and Reese, but it wasn't Reese and Reese. But how do you line up to your competitors, right? If your domain name is like something.com or get or try.com, and this other domain name is like spot on, well, you look like that perpetual startup in front of your peers, right? So there's global positioning, but then there's also industry positioning, how you rank. And that's just it's not acceptable for a company that wants to grow and scale, because you'll forever look, because your domain, you're what you call yourself, right?
You want to be leaders.
Yeah, you don't look like a leader. You're not perceived as a leader. You don't instill trust through your brand. The reality is this: is that most people, they see the advertising, they click on it, maybe they go over, and then what do? They go back to Google and they research that product and say, "Hey, am I going to get ripped off or whatever?"
Yeah.
Right.
Trust and authority online is imperative. It's crucial. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to go back and they're going to look at the competitors. They're going to rank that, and if your brand looks untrustworthy, right? If it looks untrustworthy compared to your competitors, well, guess what, right?
Yeah.
But I think in the sleep space, there's like an avocado bed or something like that. Just go to type in bedding, you have amazing brands, right? Like Casper, purple.com, about a purple, pretty good. There's all these other brands. Then there's like the niche brands and all this, but the ones that have really been able to scale, guess what? They have, when someone comes in and they look at these 10 domains and they say, hey, which one would you purchase based on the brand alone? What are you going to click on, right? You have to show that you're a leader in the industry, right? And so your domain is very important for that. And so that's one of the other strategies. So in these, what I'm saying is that there's these seven dimensions to domain name. My thesis is your domain equals your brand equity, right? So at the end, it's about brand equity. It's the reason why when ring.com sold, for $1 billion, they value the domain name at $45 million, right? I think that's what he said, $40 to $45 million. The domain name alone, right?
Yeah.
Not including the brand equity. Okay. Because guess what? Amazon could have knocked that off in like 30 minutes. It's like, hey, give me every single product that Ring has. I want to call it, whatever.
Yeah.
And overnight, boom, knocked off. Same products, their own
But
brand.
Amazon can't steal your brand. That's it.
Yeah, they bought the brand equity. They brought the consumer base. They brought the momentum behind that, right? And so your domain equals your brand equity. That's the way I look at it, and that's the frame, that's the lens that I look through a domain, right? Brand equity is trust. It's conversion. It's long-term customers, right? It's this intangible aspect, but there is also a tangible aspect as far as money. But it's in the end, it's brand equity. Okay. You're owning and you're capturing the money that you're putting in, right? It's why Carrot.com sold for $600,000 because it was brand they went to that's a great story too. I love that brand. They went to the meeting and they're like, everyone's like, we love On Carrot. And the guy's like, what? Our brand's Carrot, not On Carrot.
Yeah.
Right. So that's actually the next dimension is branding, right? They had a branding issue because all their customers, like 50%, he said 50% of their customers, right? I mean, it's not, it was his, poll, but thought their brand was On Carrot. He's like, no, our brand is Carrot, not On Carrot. But everyone talked about it like that.
Yeah.
I first came in, one of the CRMs that I used was Close.io. They own Close.com. I still talk about them as Close.io.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're not Close because that's how I came in. I had to differentiate that. No, they're Close.io.
Yeah.
It became their brand. They weren't Close. They were Close.io, right? It became their brand. And so branding is very important. Like, what is your brand, right? If you get a My or Try or an LLC or whatever, well, guess what? Like, your brand is forever. It looks like a startup.
Yep.
Like, I get it, okay, that you want Get, but that's more of like a marketing campaign. If you do that from a branding standpoint, you've almost hurt yourself because it looks like you're this perpetual startup and you're going to have issues scaling because people are going to say, well, okay, but you're Get, but I've already gotten you, so like,
sure.
What? What?
Was it join Clubhouse? Like I already joined. I already joined.
Well, and as you get to products that are much more, you use them on a more regular basis online, right? Use the app for that one. Still important. I mean, it's going to be a massive company. It is a massive company. But that's why. Listen, it's not that as an investor, Get or My or Try aren't bad. They're good, right?
Yeah.
But you got to put them in that box. They're a good box. I mean, there's some that could sell for a lot of money.
When they start, it's like, sometimes it's all they can realistically afford, right? But at some point, if they want to make it to the next level, they have no choice.
So what I'm saying, I'm giving you a lens into branding and marketing and the fundamentals when I talk to the end user about domains. Okay, you can extrapolate this from a domain investment standpoint. I'm not saying like the .io, the .co, all these are bad. They're good investments. You can make money off of them. Okay, I just gave you a couple on name bio, right?
Yeah, before there was a .io, when it switched from a com to an IO, I was surprised about that one.
Dance.co sold for $58,000. Routine.co sold for $31,000. Wiz.io sold for $28,000. Ease.io sold for $28,000. So listen, they sell, they sell, right? Oxygen.us sold for $18,000. It was Get Oxygen. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Right. Get Oxygen. And they're like, you know what? Maybe it doesn't work, those are three of the dimensions. I think you could probably keep it there. Email security is super important. Scaling is super important. That gives you a window into the dimensions. Cause I think we're
flexibility. Yeah. Taking out the sort of the descriptor lets people move around.
I don't know. Any questions from the audience, or is there anything? I feel like I've talked a lot here.
I actually had a couple ahead of time. Let me pull a couple of them up. But there's also where are we here? There's also I think some Q&A as well. We'll try to get some.
I'll hit one thing. From selling your domain name, right? So if you're doing outbound outreach, my philosophy is that you want to get it on the radar, right? You want to get on the radar for discussion, for like. We talk about timing and worldview. I mean, the reality is that if you have a marketing campaign domain name, people aren't thinking about domains, right? They're thinking about payroll, they're thinking about product, they're thinking about marketing and positioning. Can I pay my rent? I got a bug problem. whatever it is in their company, right?
Yeah.
So, part of that first interaction is just, hey, I want to get this on your radar for consideration. I want to just get it out there for you. Seems like it's a good fit. What's the best way to get the details of your team? Any interest, right? It's like getting this conversation going. And, it was a shift in my mind when I started selling domain names, realizing, listen, you're not going to sell it on the first call. You're not going to sell it on the first email. It's just not, it very rarely happens. It does happen. Okay. It does happen, but it very rarely happens that they're like, hey, I want to buy this. Right.
Yeah.
There was a domain. Problem is I can't tell you half of these, but it was a really good one. I talked to the CEO, called me up, and boom, we had a deal like literally within the first call, But when I realized that, it took a lot of pressure off, because it was like, yeah, I'm not going to, you're trying to get it on there for consideration, so that when the timing's right, it's an option for them, right? It's in the top list of their options.
Yeah.
And that takes the pressure off. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not, I'm just trying to get this conversation going, get it going. Last thing you want to do is to, once again, piss them off. They say, hey, don't ever email me again, right? What you want is, hey, not interested. If they want to pass, and you say, well, hey, that's great. Appreciate the reply. And then you can follow back up with them in 6 months. Hey, just want to see if, circle back and see if this is a good op, now the timing's right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you want to keep that up. If you think it's a good buyer, for your domain.
Yeah. So actually that leads me, I got my questions here now that some people sent it ahead of time, and I myself had quite a few as well. So I guess the biggest question is, who is the best person to contact and how when you're trying to sell a domain?
So yeah.
Like which level, and like, is it you call, do you email, do you?
So, okay. So it comes back to the 4 domain strategies, right? Brand, sub-brand, marketing, and defensive. Okay. And you got to realize the company, right? The company type, right? 5 different buyer types, right? If it's sole entrepreneur, well, I mean, it's easy, right? It's the main guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's small business, well, it's easy, because like there's only like maybe 10 people in LinkedIn. It's easy, right? As you scale up and you think, oh, this is a phenomenal marketing campaign for this company, I would say you just have to be cognizant of the domain you're brokering, and really be honest with yourself. How does it really fit within their strategy, right? So often people are like, hey, I think Amazon needs this. I'm like, I get it, but Amazon's Amazon. Like they're massive. Like they don't,
Yeah.
The reality is that they already have their branding. They're putting their money over here, And so if you go to Jeff Bezos and say, hey, Jeff, I think you really need this, he's not going to even respond. It's like, okay, block forever. So I would say definitely it's marketing, right? Because it's marketing team, right? Someone in maybe like growth marketing or growth, strategy, could be the leadership team, depending upon how good it is. Probably not the IT department, Side note here, though, is that, if you're in the IT department, I mean, if you understand domains and then you want to get ahead in your career and you want a seat at the table for strategy, understand domain names like that. Like if you're in IT and you get this, well, guess what? Now you've elevated yourself to a strategic position in your organization. And so when I talk to IT departments, like, listen, like this puts you at the table. Like if you can talk about this in the sense of marketing and these 7 dimensions that I talked about in this, like that now, you're now talking strategy. Okay. The problem though is that most IT people don't get that. It's very much, hey, don't bother me. Right. So there's different people. Put your head on as far as how this person is going to view it. Most people don't want to be bothered. They want to do their job. Hey, this is my box of what I do. They don't want to, go off on a limb. They're going to say, hey, not interested, get lost. I've had it. I mean, with brokers, listen, I've got an easy job because I broker some of the best domains, right?
Yep.
So I can go to the top, right? I can go to that level up because they're just phenomenal. It's the raw version of the brand. And so, I may reach out to, let's say, 5 people, and I may get a junior level person said, not interested, don't ever email me again. But then later, like 2 minutes later, I get an email from the CEO saying, hey, let's talk. What's the price? Let's get on the phone. I've seen that happen many times, right? Yeah. Now, obviously, if the CEO says that and they say they're interested, there's still a possibility, but you have a greater likelihood there. So I would say just be cognizant of that. I mean, finance is the wrong person, right? Because they want to keep money.
Yeah.
IT, they're not necessarily the right person because they're not thinking of marketing, right? They're thinking of IT, unless they've, been told, hey, go out and find these domain names. Let's understand domain names. Flip to that as I think they can really elevate themselves in the company. So it's, typically it's marketing of some sort, never sales. I don't think I've had a single salesperson help me.
You don't want to make their job, I guess. Well, yeah, easy or too easy, I should say. Yeah, a little easier maybe, but too easy. It's like,
yeah. I just haven't had it. They're the guys that are like, get lost. I'm not the wrong person. It's like, wow, you're just so short sighted. So, simply not sales.
Yeah. All right. So how do you usually sort of approach? Usually you start with email, or you just pick up the phone, or it depends on the size of the company, I'm guessing as well.
So, I have a different approach, right? My approach is, unless a domain name is in the radar of that person, right? Let's say that it's an inbound lead. Well, of course, like pick the phone up.
Yeah.
Call them, or email them, right? Some people don't like to call, they like to email, right? They're engaging, they're leaning in, right? But it's difficult with domains because let's say you pick the phone up. Well, what are they doing? Are they in the right frame? Are they in the right process, right? So, this is where Garrett White came in, right? His six steps to strategic seduction. Okay, okay.
I won't even try saying that.
No, you get in trouble, right? Like, YouTube deletes your channel. So the first one is communicate the message, right? So a lot of my marketing is communicating message on domain names, right? So it's like communicate, the some dimensions, why it's important, this, that. The next step is capture permission, getting them to kind of sign up to you. Now this isn't domain related, but follow the logic here, okay? Yeah. It's a sales process. So the next step is, it's capture permission, right? So you take your email, I want that white paper, I want more information, what's the price, right? The next step is convert mindset, right? That's where you give information, you're converting that mindset, you're breaking their worldview down, and you're placing with the worldview that says that domains are the most important thing in the world, right? For your strategy and your ability to grow. And this is, if you don't own this is the biggest risk and the biggest liability that you have for your company. Because another company comes along, they're gonna swallow you up, right?
Yeah.
And all your branding, right? Then it's compel actions. Then it's like compel action would be where they actually set up a meeting with you to discuss it and make an offer, right? Then it is it's close the sale and then collect the cash. So that's kind of those 6 steps to strategic seduction. If you haven't checked Garrett White out, it's awesome. It changed my life, Did I answer that?
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna go.
Okay, no. So the question was, what do I do? So you follow this logic, right? This process, right? Worldview, self, roadmap. It's and that's also from Garrett White. It's not from me. And you look at Jordan Belfort. I really like Jordan Belfort. I think he's got a very good approach as far as like getting in there. Hey, you got 60 seconds. This is why I reached out to you. Does that make sense? Right. Very just like, looping. Looping is super cool. Can you loop someone, as you build them up into the 3 10s, right? So there's like 3 10s that Jordan Belfort talks about and getting them to like absolute certainty on your domain name. Okay. Same thing, worldview. So, same kind of process, same thing there. If you pick up the phone and call, the reality is that, who knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
There's times to call. There's times to call when it's like the perfect option for them, right? And there's times to send an email.
Okay.
Right. What I like to do, I like to get that email out first personally.
Tandem.
Because it at least seeds the conversation. So they at least know, like they've seen it when you call them. Hey, I'm so-and-so with the option. I'm Chris with the options.
You've already kind of thought, well, what if I have this brand? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you got 60 seconds. Just want to, just talk to real quick, So that gets that going, right? So, I like you follow the steps, like you want to have some kind of interaction out there. And so I think it's difficult with domains to pick the phone up. Not that you can't do it and sell it. I know guys that they do that. It's old school. They get it done. I think numbers, you can push anything out there. It also comes down to like, once again, the right fit. How far is it off to that? So I think it's a combination of them. I love talking to people on the phone. Some people don't like to talk. I've done deals where I'm like, hey, you got 15 minutes to talk. I'm not talking to you. Here's my offer. Here's my offer.
Okay.
Like, okay, listen, man, I don't care, man. I'll sell it. Like, you don't talk to me when to buy it. Let's do it.
Well, and that's one thing I find personally with my, smaller potato negotiations, but it's always about adapting to to who you're talking to, right? You want to get to the level of communication. Sometimes it's, it's serious. Other times you want to be friendly and take the longer approach.
Yeah, you
and
want to look for that leaning in, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
You want to lean in. So I mean, you look at price, like it's interesting because I've actually had this happen to me like 2 times in the last like couple of weeks, right? Where I'm reaching out to people, in the community, they kind of know me, and it's like, hey, what's the price? And they're like, it's at this price. You're probably not a good fit. I'm like, hold on, jumping the gun, baby. I didn't even ask you out yet. I'm just asking you like, what's your name? And they jump the gun, like they're trying to use these tactics. That's the problem. When you don't understand something, use tactics. What happens? They end up coming across just like you're playing games. Okay, almost like it comes across weak when it just comes across with what it is, right? It's like if someone says, hey, I'm interested in this domain name, there's a you can play around with things, right? And then there's a fun aspect to negotiating. But it's like, what's the right time to do that, right? I mean, if you got us coming to you, I'm not wasting my time coming to you. I'm asking for a price. Like I've got an interested buyer. Like it's my job. If there's a gap, to get them up or move on, right? So I mean, I'm trying to get a deal done, right? So to say, hey, off the bat, hey, you're not a good fit, I'm not going to tell you anything. It's like, what? Like, listen, man. So I did a LinkedIn video yesterday where I gave kind of the thought on negotiating, right? So. The buyer, I said, the buyer is coming with a budget. Okay. Let's say there's 2 bar charts, 2 brackets, right? So their bracket is like, how much time we got? 1 minute? 10,
15 minutes. Okay. It's fine. Yeah.
So, there's a bracket down here, with where they'll come in at. And then there's like their top bracket. Okay. So this bracket let's just, for simplicity, let's say it's like 0 to 15. Okay. I'll give you $100, right? 15,000. Okay. That's their bracket. Now your bracket, in negotiation, that what you're trying to do is your bracket maybe 15 to 100,000, right?
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to see, hey, is there an overlap here, right? Maybe it's like this, right? Maybe the top though goes 50,000 and the bottom of it goes 35,000, right? Okay, if you look at these brackets here, okay. And so that's kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to figure out what's where are they at, right? Can they be elevated? Can they move up, right? Does the worldview say, hey, once you get into there and you give them this price, they're actually going to move up? Or is your bracket so far down that you're never going to reach that, right?
Yeah.
Reach the top of their bracket. And a deal is not going to get done. Now, listen, that's okay, right? One of my philosophies is to get a domain name on their radar and just get a conversation on what's the true ROI for your brand. If I can have that discussion on what the true ROI is, well, guess what? And we didn't even talk about that frame. Okay, that's a whole other frame, right? Our return on investment, right? If we can have that, then and you truly look at this, okay? And in my experience, if you truly look at this domain name is 10 times what they're asking, okay? 10 times the value, okay? But if you can truly say, hey, listen, ROI for us is down here. I get it. This is not a good fit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a good fit, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. I'll get in a couple more questions if you like. Do you have time for a few more? Or?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Okay. Here, there must be moments of doubt when you're negotiating multi-million-dollar domain sales. How do you overcome doubts of the buyer, seller, and all these sort of issues you might have and come to mind with big negotiations?
I guess it's belief in domain names. I love domains. I think it's the intersection of strategy and business. And if I see a domain, depend upon like that perfect buyer, it's like, this is what this domain, is. I know the value, right? The 7th dimension, getting the value that I really truly believe is the best decision for your company, right? Now I've seen, I've seen people walk away from the best deals, and I've seen people hold true and get that price. Okay, I've seen both of it, right? But I would say that in times I've seen them hold true and get that price is because there's a reason behind that, So some owners looking for liquidity, looking for sales, right? It's very difficult if you haven't had any sales. You're like, it's like, I did a post today on LinkedIn. Is like negotiating is a perishable skill. Okay, that's Chris Voss, another really good book, right? And so it's leverage, right? So the best domainers in the world, listen, they have money, they have it, right? So for them, it's nothing to pass on it because they know they're going to hold out for that perfect company. And if they don't, they have 3,000 other domain names. One of them is going to hit, so that they're okay with walking from this, right? Because it may take them 10 years and they'll get a different offer. Or you think of that evolution of that company, may take them 10 years to get to that viable, scalable, or that other, that higher rev company. They're okay waiting, right? So I think it's belief in your domain, belief in what it's truly worth, and having it priced correctly. And
I think that's also a big issue with a lot of domainers is just establishing a price that's realistic, right? I think that's where I think if you've been sitting on your end for quite some time, that comes a lot easier, I guess. I think with a lot of people starting it, they have that issue of like, where do I go with this? It's a
yeah. Well, go back to those buyer types, right? Where's your domain fit? I mean, I gave you that frame, right? 0 to 7, 15 to 35,
actually that's
75, 125 to 350, 350 and up.
Yeah, that's actually great. Probably that's what I love about you is that you some of these abstract ideas and you pull them back and you actually like, okay, no, it's this and this. And, there'll be exceptions where, you'll sell to the hobbyist at 10,000 and you'll sell to whatever it is outside the range. But those ranges are awesome guidelines, I think. Yeah. So,
and you can price your domain name higher too. I mean, you can say, hey, I want to go for like, right over that,
Yeah.
And sometimes you get it, sometimes, but sometimes you don't,
Yeah,
the beauty of this business is that you just don't know. You don't know until it. Some fundamentals is like, let's say you have a domain and you have a lot of offers coming in. Well, there's momentum behind it, right? There's momentum behind that domain, behind that category, right? There's this momentum.
So I'm just gonna say so just to for everybody, we went all over the place. The 5 ranges. It's the hobbyist. It's 0 to 7,000.
Yeah. So these are the 5 buyer types,
important,
right? 5 buyer types. Yeah. And I think I'm the only one who talks about this, right?
Yeah. So, but so the hobbyist is 0 to 7, and then after that, it's 7 to.
So, and these aren't hard numbers,
Yeah.
It's just a range, right? So that's why you got to get on there and you got to look at this. So the hobbyist is that like the impulse future project, right? They hate their job. They're drinking beer at night. They're like, what am I going to do? And they're like, they jump on, Dan, and they see this Dan.com, they see this domain name or FD or GoDaddy, boom, they buy it. So that's 0 to 7, right? You look at Brand Bucket and you look at GoDaddy, their sweet spot's like $3,000, right? $2,500 to $33,000, right? It's kind of creeping up. So that's that hobbyist. From there you go to the regional solo. That's like 15 to 35,000. And then you go to the legacy. Actually, I missed. Okay, it's legacy national, right? So legacy company, national company. That's like that $50,000 to $75,000 range. And then it's, viable, scalable. It's 125 to 350. And then it's it's that high rev, serial entrepreneurs, like 350 and up.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because we went all over the place, I'm going to ask you in point form, just to list the 7, because we went all over the place. I don't know, we did them all.
Oh, man.
I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to the titles of them, because I know your time.
I don't know if I can do it without explaining, but I'll try.
It's going to be and then after I'm going to ask what you're up to, and then we'll wrap things up. Unfortunately, it went by so fast.
Yeah.
But so 7 in points form.
This is like why framing is important, right? Because I can talk about something for 2 minutes. I can talk about it for hours, right? So
that's what's awesome. Yeah. And you know what? I'm once you list them off, the reason I'm saying list them off is just so people know what they are and they know what to look for when they're looking for you, because you offer so much information out there on your podcast and just everywhere, on your website, obviously. But okay, I'll let you get to the 7.
Yeah, but like I'm with you guys. Like I'm trying to sell. Like that's at the end of the day, I love what I do. I think domain names are just fundamental. I've taken a different approach because, it's just how I came about in the business, right? I came about from the corporate world, managing strategic accounts. And so I had this different lens that I see it through, right? I was at the leadership table on, massive accounts, right? Doing $100 million and some doing less than that. So the 7 dimensions are global positioning, leadership positioning, branding, marketing, SEO, and the ability to scale.
Yeah.
That's 7.
You missed the emails.
Email security. Yes.
Email security. I pay attention. I try at least.
Okay. Awesome. So once again, it's like, is there more? Yeah. If I had to do an 8th one, I would do trust. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end, everything comes down to trust, right? Side note, I think, you look at the crypto world, right? A lot of these altcoins that don't own their brand and they can, listen, they don't believe in themselves. They don't. Yeah. There's some that own, like have, massive coins, right? But they won't own the actual coin. Why is that? Right? It's trust. And fundamentally, we know this, right? We know, like, hey, why is this, right? Why don't they own this, right? So if I do an eighth one, it would be that one. But I mean, what it is that you want to look at this, and this is how you talk about domain names to people you're trying to sell domain names to, okay? Once again, the hobbyist, you don't need to go deep with the hobbyist. It's like, it's impulse, right? Oh, you're on your goal position. They don't care, man. They're just like, they're like worried, like, how am I going to make money, right? I mean, right? It's impulse, right? As you go up, you talk about them in greater depth. So it's not that you talk about these all the time, but what you do is that it's like at some point, the domain name impacts with a company at one of these levels. And that's where you want to break the worldview. That's where the worldview can be impacted and it's not cheap. You're not trying to, it's authentic, because that's where they'll see the biggest ROI to a domain name for the brand, right? Domain equals your brand equity.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. So I guess what's next for Chris? What do you said you're writing you're 75% into your book?
Yeah, I've had this book. I'm actually done book on the 7 dimensions. I've had it done for like, I'm like 75-80% there.
But you already have .com strategies, right? So that's
yeah, I've got that first book.com. Sure, you can go to chriszuiker.com. You can see it in the footer section of the podcast link. It's in a couple different spots. I've got a couple other cool links there. chriszuiker.com.
Yeah, and for those of you,
Zuiker.club too. Zuiker.club.
Okay. Yeah, and for those of you, I'm saying listening on Clubhouse and also future podcasts as well. Chris's last name is spelled Z or Z, depending where.
Yeah, Zuiker. You can go to Zuiker.club. You can it'll redirect you there, so that's easier.
Perfect.
Yeah. But no, I think, personally, I think, everyone has seen a phenomenal year. I think every domain broker, a lot of domainers have seen phenomenal years. It's great. And I would say lean into the momentum, and now's the time to harvest. Now's the time to make the sales. I think there's, these go in cycles. There's cycles of business, and so I would say, right now, are we at the peak? No, I think we're a little bit past the peak on this cycle, and I would say just harvest. Make your sales, prepare yourself, and just lean into that, and that's what I'm doing today. I'm just trying to really lean in, closing deals. But yeah, my book's coming out. Check out my podcast.
I want to reiterate that, like, anybody who's interested in domains or even sales in general, Chris, his podcast is really inspirational. It's great. It's nice 10-minute clips you can listen to. Well, it was almost every day for a while. He's kind of taking a little bit of a break, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more regularity. But they're all there, so you can go listen to them, and a lot of stories.
Yeah. I just tell stories of negotiating and domaining and strategy, and just stories I've even forgotten about. I'm like, oh wow, it's a good story. So cool.
Chris, I really appreciate you being here today. I suggest everybody go check out his stuff. Congrats on all the success, and I hope there's many more years of that to come, and hopefully we'll see you sometime soon.
Awesome, man.
So, thanks again.
Okay, good conversation. Cheers.
All right, take care, man.
Bye.
All right, so if you guys aren't ready to go out and start selling the world right now, I don't know what else it would take. Chris is really, you listen to him talk, and he's very passionate about the industry. There's very few people in this industry who really communicate that. I remember oftentimes in the socials, I would play a video by Frank Schilling where he just this video, he just oozes like the specialness and the power of a domain name, and why people really need to get a good one, to help elevate whatever it is they're doing. It's usually a business, but it could be whatever project you're doing, and it's truly inspiring. I love listening to his podcast. You guys know I listen to a lot of things when I'm out walking my little dog Steamy, who's being very helpful in sleeping right now. But yeah, so on that note, I'm just going to say up next, we have another super inspirational person in this industry, Kate Buckley. Just for a couple of seconds, I'll just remind you all that, for those of you listening on Clubhouse, you can watch live right now. Go to live.domainerweek.com. So live.domainerweek.com. And that will take you to the YouTube channel for what's Domain Podcast. It's the Domain Social is basically going to be changing a bit, but the same people will be coming, and I'll be moving that to a Domain Podcast. So right now you can watch that live. You can watch all day 1 through day 5 on rebroadcast of the basically of Domainer Week. The first days are available to view right there right now. We are in Clubhouse as well for those of you who just want to go for a walk and listen in. I'm trying to think what else. If you want to join us, so here's the thing. I think a lot of people are reluctant to come join us live in the room because I made it so easy to listen to and to watch on YouTube. Day 1, we've already it's just a few days later, we're already over 300 views, and the other days are at like 200 views. So I'm really happy you guys are all enjoying this. But if you want to join us, like in Zoom, where the chat is going and where you can ask questions of the panelists, if we have time, if I don't ramble on for as long as I do, which I apologize for, go to, it's probably by the time you get this, it will be DomainPodcast.com. So it's formerly thedomainsocial.com. Right now, DomainPodcast.com / there, and subscribe. And basically, you'll join the mailing list. And every time I do an event, right before the event, I will send out an email with the Zoom link. And you just click the link and you come join us in Zoom and you chat and you can watch us live and be part of the group, the social group. That was why we started this. That's why I think Mike Zuiker started it back in March of 2020 when the pandemic started, and he felt that there was a need for people to come together in this community of domainers to kind of stick together and just, as a community, give each other tips, talk domains, just keep ourselves with the mindset of trying to sell our magical domains, like that. But so I think that's all I have to do with my rambling. It's now 2:30 and I see Kate has popped in. I'll ask her if I forgot to say anything. She'll probably she might know. But yeah, so today is just a day of these two pioneering role models in this industry. Well, pioneering, maybe not what they're at the beginning, but I mean, right now they're elevating it, I should say. Hello, Kate.
Hi.
So today we have Kate Buckley joining us now from Buckley Media, who I've had actually before on a previous domain panel for when we did some reviews, and I've crossed paths with her many times over the past year and had some really engaging and wonderful discussions, Kate. So I'm really looking forward to today. I guess I'll just start by saying, welcome. Thanks for being an incredible voice in this industry. I know you have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this industry, how it's going, and maybe some potential changes, and maybe we'll touch on that if we have time. Again, I'll remind people, if you have questions, just toss them in the Q&A. If we have time, we'll do that. Try to keep them simple because as you see, I'm trying to go back and forth a bit. But we'll try to do that again. Just keep them simple in Q&A, and we will try to get to those at the end. Otherwise, Kate, welcome again. And I guess just how are you?
Hi. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And thank you so much for all you do and all your leadership. You have stepped in to fill a void, especially during this crazy time. And you have created so much community and so much content. I don't know when you sleep, but I'm in awe of you.
I'm not sure what that is. What word did you just use?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think on Saturday I'll be the perfect description of one of your recent domain sales. I'll just be like I'll be out like a light.
I love it.
Until then, but it's honestly, it's because of people like yourself. I mean, and Chris and everybody else in the industry who I think have a great voice, great things to share, and sometimes it just, you need to spark things and get people together. And, it was the Domain Social for the last year has been a weekly thing, and a lot of us have grown to be great friends because of it. So the reason for it starting was unfortunate, but the fortunate byproduct is I think a strengthening of the community and a lot of the friendships there. And I've crossed paths with you now many times, either on Zoom or when you were on the panel, or whether it be Clubhouse, whatever it is. And we always have fun conversations. So it's again, it's great to have you. That said, there's probably a lot of people who might not be as experienced in domains, who are new to the industry, who, no, I'm not going to say they don't know who you are, but maybe don't know as much about you as they should. So how about you just fill those people in with what they need to know about, Kate Buckley, where you came from, and how you got into this wonderful, magical world of domains.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. No pressure. So do you want
Sorry.
Do you want the long story or the short story or the cocktail party soundbite?
Well, it's up to you, because after this we're going to do a social whenever you're done. So it's up to you. We can do short, long, medium, whichever you like.
Okay. So I think I'll do short to medium.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So let's see, born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. Here's why that matters is my family. I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My great grandfather, am I wearing his pendant today? No, I'm not. Came over from Ireland with his family, and then his son started Buckley and Company Insurance, which stayed in the family until fairly recently. My father sold it and retired. And then real estate. And so I grew up hearing about, business and business terms, and being very comfortable with risk taking and really understanding supply and demand and how to make markets, and real estate, which is, I've always been in real estate as an investor. I've always loved real estate. And so when I first started, when I first started hearing about domains, I'm like, oh, digital real estate. This is the piece of the planet that you own online. So it immediately made sense for me and kind of clued back into my upbringing. Went to UK, I got a major in advertising and PR, which has also held me in good stead. Minored in fine art and painting, moved to New York, worked for big ad agencies, back to Lexington for a hot minute to work as a director of marketing for an equine marketing firm, then out to California. And in 1998 is when I moved to Palm Springs to help David and Michael Costello launch palmsprings.com. So David had already done a soft launch of it, but they brought me on board to really kick it into high gear along with David and really start to monetize it. And we did. I don't know if anyone's heard David talk about it. It's a great story. But he and I, just the two of us, in short order, had just the homepage alone doing over $1 million a year. Wow. And and this has been an era where that was unheard. I mean, now it's like, what? That's nothing. But
yeah.
It was unheard of.
Yeah.
So it was a great education in just down and dirty sales, really. I mean, I'd worked odd sales jobs, forever before I got into marketing and advertising. But it was just literally like pounding the pavement and educating people, and getting really comfortable with being told no. Right. Which I think is a seminal thing to learn if you're going to be good at selling anything, is to get very comfortable being told no. Yeah. And, we always joke that, the second best answer other than yes is no, right? Because you're like, great, like, don't waste my time. Or of course, no can be an on-ramp to yes, but. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yes. But, which, there are a lot of sales have also been closed that way. Yeah. So anyway, just sort of having that trial by fire or learning in that sort of day-to-day sales and building an online business and really educating people that palmsprings.com was the world's premier global real estate digital real estate for Palm Springs. So from there, I launched LagunaBeach.com with David and Michael in 2000, which is why I am here today. I'm in my home office in Laguna Beach, California.
Nice.
Obviously, I fell in love with Laguna. I'm still here, although I've moved here and there all in between, but I've always kept a foot on the ground in Laguna. I did Nashville.com with them as well. Love Nashville. In fact, Todd and I are getting ready to take an extended trip back to Nashville. We miss it. And then probably about 2013, I want to say. And in between all of this, I wrote and published 2 books, went back to school, got a Master of Fine Arts in creative writing, and won a bunch of national awards in poetry. Yep. I served as poet laureate for the city of Laguna Beach. That was actually more recently. I'm getting my timelines conflated. And so, that writing, that creativity, that creative process has always been an integral part of who I am, and also plays into my vision casting and my sales process, and my vision overall for domains and domaining.
I think that's one thing that makes you pretty unique in this business is your ability to, I guess, well, I'm not going to say unique. There's lots of other brokers out there who do it, but I mean, I think you're very well known for being able to paint a picture, right, of that. So but I mean, but at the beginning you were in domains, but you weren't selling domains, right?
Correct.
Correct, yeah. And then you took a little bit, and then how did you end up back in domains?
Yeah. So, for the first time, I sold my first domain in 2013. Pretty sure it was 2013. You could look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's 2013. So I caught a little bit of the tail end of what my colleague, Chris Zuiker, was saying. Sometimes you have to know just how to strike when the iron is hot. And for a myriad of reasons, I felt that the time was right to sell LagunaBeach.com. So I went to David and Michael and said, hey, what do you think about me selling this property for you? And so we had a lot of dialogue about it, and both got really comfortable with the idea and talked about, what does that look like? Right. Does that, and so we really kind of fleshed it out, and I created a pitch for them. I said, here's my vision for what the sales process will be, what the sale will be like, what the target price is, what the floor price is, what my commission will be. So all of that was discussed and negotiated and agreed upon up front. And at that point, I think it's worth noting that I had no idea what I was doing. I had never sold a domain name before. I'd never sold a business before. I'd never sold. Oh, yeah. I mean, I sold cell phones in college.
And you were selling like listings on
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I actually just looked it up. I don't want to tell you incorrect data. It was 2013. So they agreed, and I then started constructing defense. Like, I thought, I kind of think about when I'm getting ready to pitch a domain to someone, I kind of pretend I'm an attorney. Like when I was a kid, my favorite book was To Kill a Mockingbird. And, like so many children, I dreamt of being Atticus Finch when I grew up. And in fact, I was all set to go to law school until my dad had me clerk at a law firm downtown one summer in college. And it was one of his buddies' real estate law firms, which of course it's the most boring law you could practice ever. Okay. So I think my dad knew. He was like, if she does that, I don't think that she's really gonna like law school. It's just her personality. So we'll just head it off at the pass. So sure enough, I was like, wait, when do we get to go to court and have big speeches? This isn't happening. All I'm doing is running files. Obviously, this was a long time ago. Running files back and forth to the courthouse, and everything smells like pigeon guano, and this is not exactly glamorous. What did I get myself into? And so anyway, back to my story. But I've always loved, I studied debate in college. I studied logic in college. I studied statistics. Like my brain loves creating structures and arguments as to why someone should or should not do something, right?
Yeah.
And so that actually served me really well when I went to start marketing LagunaBeach.com. And so I thought, okay, well, let me put myself in their shoes. Why would anyone want to buy this? Right? So let me list all those. And then what would they do with it? Okay, well, let me write all of that out. And so I started building my case, if you will, right? And then I thought, well, who am I going to be selling to? Okay. So then I started getting feedback. I started interviewing venture capitalists, private equity, media companies, CEOs of tourism and the tourism industry, just saying, what's your job like? What kind of things do you fund? What kind of things do you buy? What are your pain points? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Right. And at the time, I was dating an investment banker who had worked for a long time as a VC. And so he was able to give me a lot of really good feedback as far as, nobody cares about that, Kate, make it stronger. Nobody cares about that. How is this, right? How is this going to improve their bottom line? How is this going to do this? How is this going to do that? And so I built out, oh my gosh, I built out a huge document I built my first hand appraisal ever. I built out a business plan, a case for ownership, an executive study. I built out, I forecast numbers for the next 5 years. I said what they were going to have to invest in the domain to get it where I thought it should be and could be, to be kicking off the type of revenue somebody would need to get the kind of ROI that would make the price tag that I was asking make sense, right? So I built all this out, and then I kind of, I call it, I took my dog and pony show on the road. I went up and down the state of California, and I pitched it to a media company in San Diego and media company in Orange County, and a myriad of venture capitalists and different investment bankers who are always looking for interesting projects. And my pitch to them was, I'll run it. Okay. And I built in the runway, I built in my salary, I've built in all of this stuff. This is just what I need from you. So it was just an amazing experience. So I ended up selling it to a media company right here in Orange County who had experience with high-end domains before. And it was one of those kismet deals where I actually met the head of the company at a cocktail party for a colleague's PR agency. It was the opening of her PR agency. And so she said, oh gosh, you guys have so much in common, you should chat. And that chat turned into, hey, let me take you to lunch and share this idea with you, which turned into a 5-hour lunch, which turned into multiple meetings, which turned into an offer, which was accepted. So in October of 2013, I sold LagunaBeach.com, and just the domain, but this was a domain only sale, okay, for $600,000. And Laguna Beach is a tiny little town, and this was 2013. So everyone was very happy with this. And I earned my commission, and I thought, well, this is really interesting. I might like to do this again. Then at that point, the acquirer turned back around to me and said, hey, so you're going to run this for me, right? And I'm like, I don't know.
I did say that, didn't I?
What are we talking? Well, no, that was when I was pitching the investment banker. Okay. I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? And he was like, well, I'll give you the piece of the action, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I need to see your financials. I need to see your partnership statements. I need to know your exit strategy. I really need to know what I'm getting into if I'm going to just roll up my sleeves and do this entire thing for sweat equity. So long story short, we ended up deciding that he was going to hire my company. Did I have a company? No, I did not. Did I have a company the next day? Yes, I did. That is when I launched Buckley Media. And so his corporation hired my corporation for an agreed upon retainer to come in and quarterback everything. So in essence, I served as the de facto CEO for probably about a year and a half. And boy, it was an effort. There wasn't as many assets in place as I had been led to believe with the acquiring entity. So I had to do everything from scratch. to sourcing, hiring, and training staff and salespeople and dev people and designers and meeting with the city. And I mean, it was, boy, I was exhausted when that was over, but it was an amazing experience. It's since changed hands since then. The current site does not reflect my efforts.
Oh, okay.
But I'm like, don't look it up and think, this is good, because it's not. Anyway, they're lovely people. I wish them all the best. I have nothing to do with the current site. Moving on. So anyway, so that whole thing took me, a year and a half to 2 years. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go do another real estate project. I need a break. So I went back to Kentucky. I bought a duplex, developed into a triplex, kitted it all out, made it gorgeous, rented it out, did an Airbnb. And I was like, maybe I'll just travel the world for a while. And then I got bored, as I often do, and thought, all right, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And, and a girlfriend of mine was like, oh, a friend of mine has a big, media and dev company. They own huge domains. They do super cool stuff with them, plus a lot of other businesses. And he would hire you in a heartbeat to run all of his stuff and pay you very handsomely for it. And I thought about that. It was really generous of her and of him. And I really thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I have been on commission only since 1998. I haven't gone into an office. I have not gone into an office since 1998. I'm not very good at being told what to do. So I thanked her profusely and politely declined and said, you know what, I'm going to double down on this company I apparently started a couple years ago. And at that point, I went back to David and Michael and said, hey, can I try my hand at another domain name? They said, sure. I mean, you did a great job with LagunaBeach.com. 100%. Absolutely.
When you approach them, you mean to actually build out again and then sell, or just for pure sales?
Pure sale.
Okay.
Pure sale. Great question. Pure sale. Yeah. So we agreed that I would take on rate.com.
Oh.
And so I, started working on that. And, used what I'd learned in selling LagunaBeach.com. And and again, this was years later, right? This was 2016 at this point. So that I start working on my second domain sale ever in 2016.
Yeah. 5 years ago. Yeah.
Right. So start working on rate.com. And, and I don't know if it's good or bad that I didn't, I wasn't reading what other domainers were doing. I didn't even know that this community existed other than having gone to different conferences with David and Michael over the years. Like the old Associated Cities, the odd, domainer conference here and there. But other than that, and also I don't think that this kind of community did exist then. But all the resources we have now with all the podcasts. And so I did not look up what other domainers were doing or saying at all. So, you can argue that was good or bad. Personally, I think it served me well because I developed my own brand and I developed what has worked very well for me. And I built it on a foundation of sales and marketing and psychology and sound negotiation practices and sound business practices, right? Yeah. Because in the end, that's who we're talking to. We're talking to businesses. And if we can't speak their language or understand their pain points, then we're not going to do very well. Yeah. Or not do as well as we could, I should say. So back to rate.com, I start working on it and I get told no a million times. So, all those early sales jobs and working on palmsprings.com served me well. No. I'm like, all right, next. Yeah. Whatever. Next.
Who's next? Yeah.
Yeah. In my head, I'm like, well, you clearly don't get it. You're going to be kicking yourself, in a couple months. And which is what happened, which is always, no one ever likes a schadenfreude, but it is kind of interesting to go, you could have had that. And you could have even had it for less money, but you didn't. So it's always interesting to take that long view. And even now, if you're selling something and someone tells you no, just be like, that gets me so much closer to the person who's going to pay way more money for this. Yeah. Is what I always think. But so anyway, I ended up selling rate.com to guaranteed rate for $725,000 in 2016. That was in May of 2016. And that was an interesting sale because I knew from the beginning they should buy it. Do you know when you just get a gut feel and you just know? Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, on a smaller scale, but yeah, I don't have rate.com, but I do know what you mean. It's you connect with a buyer and you feel that, I don't know, it just, I don't know if it's excitement is the word I would use, or it feels like that's what they need to evolve to the next level, you know, and it's like you're giving them the stepping stone, I guess is what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. But, very well said. But, sometimes I think we all, especially those of us who are tuned into our intuition, we just get a gut instinct of that is the acquirer. I just know it is. And so when they tell me no, I think, yeah, but. Whereas when other people tell me no, I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. It's probably not right for you, in my head. Mm. So the CMO kept telling me no, and he's no longer the CMO.
I wonder why.
Well, he's a very nice guy. We've stayed in touch. He's actually doing really cool things at another company now. I don't fault him at all. He was probably getting a different direction from his leadership at that time. Yeah, that happens too. But very nice guy. We worked beautifully together on this. But anyway, he kept telling me no. Actually, not even telling me no. He wouldn't even give me the time of day. Like nothing, right? But again, I kept being convinced, kept being convinced. And so I started deciding that if I was going to sell this, I really had to do a deeper dive into what their goals and missions were and what their pain points were. If I were really going to tailor this pitch, since they just didn't get it off the cuff, right? And so I started following their CEO on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I started looking at all of any piece of content that came out from the company. I was absorbing, particularly that came from the CEO, because at the end of the day, he was going to be the decision maker, right? So I started sort of compiling a psychographic in my head, if you will, of this individual, of what was driving him and what his needs were and what would appeal to him, and what is his language, because we all have a different language in which we process reality. And so he posted something one day on Twitter that I was like, ooh, here's my in. So he was posting a new consumer-facing app, but he was going to do it on guaranteed rate. Does that strike you as a little long for an app that's supposed to be making your consumer's life easier? And
a lot of people, I would say, unfortunately, might not even know what to spell guaranteed.
Okay. You are literally, that's my second point. Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Yeah. So I sent him a pitch immediately on Twitter for why he should acquire rate.com to completely tee up this initiative. The next day, the CMO, who had been, ignoring me forever, I had an email from that individual in my inbox saying, how do we get this domain name? So then the negotiation started. They started at 10,000.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, they started at 10,000, and I just kept smiling and saying, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. And we talked on the phone, we texted, we emailed, like I said, we worked really well together. We built up a good rapport. We had a lot of, respect for one another and enjoyed the process. And then at one point I had them very close to where I knew that my clients were ready to kind of pull the trigger. And he and his CEO were still really couldn't get their heads around the price. And I said to him, I said, hey, I bet a pain point for you is that a lot of people can't spell guaranteed. And he started laughing and he was like, damn you.
Yeah. Our secret. That was supposed to be, yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's common sense, right? I mean, you got it right away. It's common sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, especially like branding companies, aren't thinking with common sense when they pick out names and brands, are they? Like we see it every day.
All the time. Yeah.
And then they have to spend tens of millions of dollars to cement that name and that spelling and that pronunciation on the public's mind, collective mindset in order to achieve any kind of mind share. So it's like, I always say you can build a brand or you can buy one. So do you want to spend tens and tens of millions of dollars branding this crap name / domain? Or do you want to strategically and surgically invest in your best industry defining, category defining, exact match.com, or just a killer one word empty vessel brand, right? That will be both a moat and a multiplier, right? So anyway, we had that conversation, and he just started laughing, and David and I were laughing about it because a day earlier, David had shot me a note, just kind of seeing how the negotiations were going, and David is brilliant. He misspelled guaranteed. So I told that to the CMO, and we were laughing, and I was like, look, it's endemic, whether it's a typo, whether someone's typing too quickly, what typo, whether someone is just confused for a hot second, even if they really know how it's spelled, or whether someone simply doesn't know how to spell it. This is a big problem for you. So they agreed. They came up to 725, and at that point, my client said, "Okay, we'll transact." So that is how that one went down, and then from there, I thought, okay, at this point, I officially have a business. So I'm gonna put a toe in the water. Yeah. I'm gonna see what else is out there. I'm going to see, what other names I might be able to take on, and either acquire for a client or sell for a client, because I was also getting branding gigs during that time, and they wanted me to rebrand their entire company and buy their domains. So I did a number of those, which again, hugely educational, really rewarding, and And I want to say I'm so grateful. I have never had to solicit business. All of my clients have read about me or heard about me or were referred through a friend, and just, wanted to call me up and have a conversation. And then one of my long-term favorite clients came along right at this time, Roy Messer. Do you know Roy? Do you know who Roy is?
I'm not familiar with Roy. No,
he's a lovely, lovely gentleman. He and his wife live in North Carolina and Florida. Lovely, lovely human being. And he notably sold vodka.com.
Okay, yeah.
For $3 million back in the day. Anyway, so I was, working at my kitchen table one day, and I get a call, and I hear, "Hey, Buckley," and I'm like, "This is Roy Messer." And I'm like, "Well, hey, Roy," and I'm furiously Googling. I'd heard the name, but I'm furiously Googling, like, to get more information to help me better answer his questions. And Roy's just so much fun. He's such a character, and he's just throwing stuff at me left and right. "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" "Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree." And then at the end, he goes, "I'm going to send you my entire portfolio. See what you think." And we have worked together ever since. And he and his wife have become dear friends, and they're just so much fun. And that's a great example of my gratitude to my clients, where they have taken it upon themselves to find me and build a relationship with me. And it's been really fun. Yeah. So I think that pretty much takes us.
Yeah, and then you get into the more the routine, the regular sales that we start hearing from the last few years, I guess. But it's like, I had little things outlined, whatever it is, but I want to go back to a second to actually jump on something, because we've already talked on the side a lot of things about communication and connecting with clients and things like that, but unfortunately, everybody who's listening and watching don't have that history that we've talked a little bit about. And so when you were talking with that CMO and that the company was there and you saw that opening, the one thing I think is important that people might not realize is, how did you establish that rapport at that point? A lot of people, I think, they just think, okay, I'm going to send them a thing. Do you want to buy this domain? And that this and that. And I know with you like to develop a sort of a rapport is how I would put it. And I that's why I really admire your tactics, because it's like, when you correct that rapport, you get an understanding of what their needs are and what their wants are, and over time you can kind of feed those things that they're looking for without them actually knowing it. Like for me, when I don't do outbound, but I probably will after today. But I mean, with my inbound stuff, it's the same thing. It's like, you read the email and or the contact, and you just look for little bits of information to form a bridge with that person. But with you, the way you're talking right now, you probably do it significantly higher. So is that an important part of your transactions, is building rapport prior to setting any price point or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And every transaction is different, right? Of course, I always try to get a potential buyer on the phone, or now on a Zoom, ASAP, right? Inbound, outbound, doesn't matter. I really, really, really try to do that, because, I mean, think about it. Then you can actually ask questions, and you can hear responses in real time, where emails are very easy to ignore. Or even if you ask the questions in an email, they don't have to reply. It's totally different. Also, in an email, they can't hear your tone and you can't hear their tone, right?
Crucial.
Yeah. So my preference is, between the three of Zoom, phone, or email, of course, my preference is Zoom, right? Because I can look into their eyes-ish. I can read their facial expression. I can see if they're leaning in. I can see if they're engaged. I can see if they're looking up like, I don't really believe what she's saying. I can see if they're having some sort of a moment of cognitive dissonance, and you can just see that on their face, and you can better massage that. Do you know what I mean? Like, lean in and say, I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's talk about that. Or tell me more about that. What does that mean to you? Right. And you can't do that. Of course, you can do it in a phone call, although it's more helpful to have the visual, but it's very difficult to do it via email. That said, just because you're missing the intonation and the body language. That said, there are many times where, and you guys all know this, there's many times where people refuse to get on the phone, let alone a Zoom.
Yeah.
They want to do everything via email. Some people only via text, right? And that's fine. So you have to speak their language. They don't have to fit into my world. I have to fit into their world. Yep. So my job is to be the best communicator I am, regardless of the platform, and figure out a way to speak their language. I've made many sales where I never even spoke to them on the phone. It was because they refused to. It's not because I didn't want to. Yeah. So I'm like, cool. All right. So we're going to do this via email. Let's go.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes good communication is keeping things short and concise, right? To figure out that's what I always do. I try to figure out who that person is. And sometimes people exactly that. They want point form. They want to get to the point, and they don't want the fluff because whatever reason. And you know what? If that's what they want, fine, But I would think that with some of these more let's say lucrative transactions that you're a part of, I think usually there's probably a little bit more massaging needed to sort of open up the wallets of some of these larger companies.
Well, I mean, yes and no. One of my last larger sales through a larger company, they wanted Skype calls, they wanted phone calls, they wanted video calls, and it was great. I was yes, showed up for everyone, of course. I'm working on two right now. One, the offer is at mid 7 figures, and he won't even get on the phone with me, at all. He's like, here's my offer. I'm like, okay, thank you. And there's this to consider, this to consider, this to consider, this to consider. I feel like it might be more an efficient use of everyone's time for us to simply hop on a phone call. He's, not interested in that. So I'm having to work with what is, right? That's our job. We work with what is. And another one, the current bid is at low 7 figures. And he'll email me all day long. The CEO will email me, the CRO will email me, but neither will get on the phone. So again, I work with what is, but certainly if you can, always try to get them on the phone or in Zoom for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of us, we're starting off. I think that's probably the one thing that people are intimidated of, is like, the counters and, like for me on the emails, I think, as you probably know, I'm pretty good, but it's because I have the time, right? I have the time to think things through. Like I know, like there's some things you mentioned earlier on about your background that I didn't know, the logic and the stats and all that stuff. And for me, I think like that as well. And, I think I could probably think on the fly pretty quick, but I just don't have that experience. So it would probably, that's just to pick up a call, and it would be intimidating, but, for the counters. But I know that, through email, yeah, I could take time, I'd take the night, think things up, rewrite, and then, send it out. A more well thought out sort of process. I think that's, for a lot of people, they're a little reluctant getting the phone for exactly that reason. They don't have that time to think, and I guess maybe I was going to ask you for some tips on the phone, but I guess the tips is basically live your life that you've done to gain that experience with logic and the stats and the sales, and just like, can you think of anything you could share with people to make that first phone call if they haven't done that yet?
Yeah, I can. And also I want to go back to a point that you made about the advantage sometimes to email, which is you can sleep on it. Yeah. And you can really get clear on your tactic for how you want to come back and how you want to phrase it and the points that you want to make and what you want to not say, right? Writing a good email is like sculpting clay. Right? Sometimes it's what you take away. Like, Michelangelo famously said about David, he released him from the stone, right?
Yeah.
So crafting a good email, I think is one of the best skills that anyone in our industry can develop. Crafting a solid, persuasive email that also somehow manages to build rapport, and sometimes there is, call to be a little stronger, but in most situations, as we all know, you catch more flies with honey. So to your point, there are times where I'm like, I'm going to handle this via email and I'm going to sleep on it. And I might even take 3 days to respond on purpose as a part of the negotiation tactic, right? So again, I think that my overarching advice is to develop the tools in your toolbox and have them all completely honed and ready to go. Whether that's your email tool, your negotiation tool, your tactical tool, your phone call, your Zoom, your body language, your persuasion, blah, blah, blah. Because you need to use a different one for each single situation. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah, because I still remember what you're talking about, crafting the emails. I mean, I might not be doing it as much for sales, but I mean, even when I'm organizing things like this week, or I still remember when I first asked on the review panel last year, when I was trying to persuade Kate Buckley to come on, the first time to we were doing a domain review panel, and it was like, how do I make sure to get this gem? I want a star headliner on this thing. It's like, I wrote an email and then exactly that. And it's like, okay, I didn't send it, change it around, edit, next day, send. And that's it's not just for sales. It's for domains. It's for almost anything. And that's why I think you're a real inspiration of mine, because it's like you put thought into things. You're very detailed, but it's like at the same point, sometimes too many details is too much, right? You don't want to lose people along the way as well, So I'm curious, like what. So if we're getting into this email stuff, I guess we'll do a detour here. What are the sort of things that like either data points or stats or just facts that you would put in an email, or when you communicate with somebody for the first time, or not even the first time, as you go along? What are the points, the type of I guess, again, types of information that you find to be most effective to getting to a sale?
Well, first, I want you to share with your audience what the outcome was of your email.
I think was first word like a wow or something like that. I was yeah.
You not only got me to say yes, but
Yeah.
I said, wow, that was an insanely well-crafted email. That was really eloquent. You
Yeah.
sold me. I'm
Yeah.
in.
That was probably one of the greatest compliments I ever had, because I know for you but it's important to communicate. That's why I wanted to talk about sales today too, but I really, as I mentioned, I really wanted to talk communication, because it's fundamental to sales, but it's also fundamental in the way we also present our industry too. I know there's some things that you want to change in industry to make it better and elevate it, and we'll hopefully get to that a little bit later. For myself too, like, when I do the socials, people say, I have the rule, no swearing, and it's like, well, why is there no swearing? Well, it's partially because of YouTube, right? The rules change, and they say some things are okay, some things are not, and it changes over time. It changes in the territories and all that stuff. It's better just keep it simple and don't do that. Whereas when I go with my buddies to a bar or whatever it is, I don't care. It's whatever. It's not the end of the world. But the way we present ourselves as an industry, to me, is it's important, and that we already have the image of I won't even say the word, right? The cyber something or other, right? But we're fighting that, right? And so anyway, so I took some detour. I don't know where I was coming from that, but yeah, the communication points. That's exactly it. What sort of information? Unless you want to talk about that email I wrote you again, that was it was a work, but it's important.
It's your show. It's your show.
No, it's your show today. It's your actually. I'm really trying to not talk at all. I have a few more days left. I want you to share with us. So yeah, what sort of information would you put and share with a potential client? Like, I guess either at the start, and then as you progress, where do you find success?
So I feel like I keep going back because I want to pick up little threads and weave them
for
into
it.
the tapestry that
Yeah.
we're creating. So I'm going to get to that. But first, I want to go back to a question you posed earlier, which is, did I have any advice for people who aren't used to getting on the phone?
Yeah.
And as to how they might proceed. So how many people, I'm sure everyone's read at least one book on negotiation, right? I feel like that's a safe assumption in this crowd. Probably multiple. I've got a shelf right here in the bookshelf in front of me.
I was going to reach for Chris Voss, but it's just a lot of reach. But yeah,
that's my favorite. Like, here, I'll give him a little like.
Yeah, exactly. Mine's a little bit over there. I have to climb over steamy.
Literally right here.
Yeah.
I love that book. So yes, and that's excellent. You should be reading experts on negotiation. There's, Influence, Getting to Yes, Never Split the Difference, Negotiation Boot Camp, We Need to Talk, which is just about how to have conversations that matter, Secrets of Power Negotiating. Anyway, and so don't tell anyone, but I actually haven't read every single one of those, but I will at some point. But what I want to say is that is a great foundation, but what else is? Understanding interpersonal communication via psychology. So has anyone ever been to couples therapy? Right? I'm raising my hand for those who I cannot recommend it highly enough for learning how to negotiate. Think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the system that I really like for handling high conflict or not even conflict, for people that really have, that's by in essence conflict, Kate, but different points of view, right? Is called Imago. And it's predicated on the work of Carl Jung, right? If you're familiar with Jungian psychology or Jungian philosophy. And it's basically you mirror, you validate, right? You empathize, and it's magic. It's magic. And what I found really interesting is when I started reading Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. I was reading it one night and I smacked it down and I said a word I'm not going to say because we're keeping it very elegant and eloquent.
One word here or there is not the end of the world. It's already
But
happened.
I said, holy moly.
Okay.
We'll go with that. I said, holy moly, this is Imago. It's Imago. So everything that he was using for like counterterrorism and the hostage negotiation, right? And then talking about business negotiation, it's Imago therapy. It's the Imago dialogue. So let's try an example. Let's do this. Ready?
Okay.
So you are person A, I'm person B, and you say, I am really mad at you because, and then just make up a reason.
I'm really mad at you because you're too good at sales. No, okay. I'm trying to think of a reason. I'm really mad at you because you don't like my dog.
Oh, well, you should have chosen something that,
Okay, that's true. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any reason why I'd be mad at Kate Buckley. Come on.
Okay, let's do like a silly thing. Like,
okay.
I'm mad at you, Kate, because you stole the remote right before I was getting ready to watch my favorite show.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. I'm mad at you, Kate, because you took the remote right before Star Trek was on.
Oh, okay. So first of all, thank you for sharing that with me. What I'm hearing, I want to make sure that I've got this. What I'm hearing is that you're upset because I took the remote right before Star Trek came on, and I'm betting you really wanted to watch it. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Kate.
Wow. That must have felt really bad to you. That must have felt like I just didn't care about you and your wants and your needs. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I was kind of looking forward to watching it.
You probably think I'm really selfish.
Well, yeah, well.
I wouldn't blame you because, I mean, if I were you, I would think that was really selfish. And do you mind if I share something from my point of view?
Okay.
First, again, I just want to thank you for sharing with me your point of view, because I just didn't see it that way. I was just thinking, gosh, Sharif, like, you've been watching TV all day and like my Hallmark Channel show is coming on. And I didn't think, because I know you're a really loving and generous person. So I just didn't think you would mind if I borrowed the remote for an hour to watch my show and then gave it back to you. But I see now that I should have checked in with you. Right? Because you're a sentient being with your own rights and thoughts and ideas. And I didn't give you that autonomy. And I really apologize for that.
Okay. Yeah, let's watch your show and I'll PVR mine. But yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you say. It's important tactic. I mean, negotiations is. I mean, you want to empathize with the other side. That's why my smaller advice often on the socials is like, always go into the emails, try and find as many hints and clues to the personality of the person as possible, and try to evolve your tactics to match theirs, or their style to match theirs. Like I said, sometimes it's short and sweet, and keep it short and sweet. And sometimes they're looking for an excuse to be sold, right? Sometimes they're asking questions like, oh, the moment they ask a question, it should be game over almost, right? So, yeah. But I'm sorry for not letting you watch the Hallmark Channel.
But I mean, the takeaway, and I agree with everything you said, that was really helpful. But I think the takeaway is people can't hear you when there is conflict. They literally, it's like, just if you study the science of the brain, when you get into this, what happens neurologically, they can't hear you. There's so much cognitive dissonance. So you have to heal that rift first. Right. And that's why I did what Chris Voss calls an accusation audit, which was, you probably think I'm really selfish. Right. Because what happens is, once someone feels heard, whether that is a buyer saying, you don't understand, it's not in my budget, or you don't understand, my SEO guy says this won't work. Right. If you just keep arguing without acknowledging, it's just going to be cognitive dissonance, right? But if I say, Thank you for sharing that with me. In fact, why don't we get on a call tomorrow and really talk this out? Because I really see from your point of view how this could be really concerning. And it does seem like a lot of money. Let's be honest. Premium domains are very expensive with the way that you're thinking about them now. But guess what? They're worth it. And I'd really like to show you why they're worth it, why I think they're undervalued. Why I think they are the most undervalued digital asset you could acquire on the planet, and what it could do to your bottom line, how it can make your life easier, how it can make you look like a rock star to your CEO. I've got some case studies from colleagues of yours that you might find interesting. Could we do a 15-minute Zoom tomorrow and go over some of this, right? Do you see how that might break down the barrier more than me just saying, no, you're an idiot, shut up?
You know what? I never really bridged the domains thing and that. You just kind of blew my mind. And it's like exactly that. You said that when they come to you, when they answer and they go no or whatever it is, you take that and you say, yeah, you know what? I can see your point of view. I can see how you can understand that. And then
you're right.
Pull them in. Yeah. It's like, I've done it many times in my life. Like I've managed, nightclubs, and I've worked in a casino, and like there's times when there's conflict there between people and whatever it is. I've actually stood up to two guys with guns and wanted to get the guy behind me, and I was able to empathize with them and say, well, I know you guys really do, and it's like I know he did wrong, but cops are coming to, and I was able to in the moment do that. But I never really thought of with domains. They go no, it's like yeah, well okay, I could see your perspective. I know you really don't want to go to your bank account, right, and pull out that money. But that's yeah, okay. Sorry, you just connected some dots in my head. Now I'm like, I'm going to be doing sales from tomorrow, or no, Saturday, maybe Sunday.
What you just shared is startlingly awesome. That's a mini case study from your own life where you used very high level tactical empathy in order to diffuse a situation, a potentially fatal situation, right? And bring about a peaceable win-win resolution, right? That is high level stuff.
Sure. I didn't realize. But yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah, hello? I didn't really share that much, but yeah. No, but what's what it is. Like you tell them, okay, I understand somebody wronged you. I understand. I didn't even judge them for that. It was more like, okay, well, then I go back to the shoes. I go, look, cops are coming. I gotta get, it's like you either gotta go now or it's gonna be, and that was it. And they go, okay, well, whatever, bye, and
that's it.
Yeah,
you put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. At the end of the day, everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants to feel understood and accepted, whether it is the most powerful CEO or the most obstructionist VP of biz dev. At the end of the day, everyone deserves to feel good. So how can we do that together? How can we do that together? And how can we do that in a way that maximizes value on these phenomenal domain names that we're all working on, right? And that is where you start to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Because I think if you just do one without the other, because you do need the data, you do need the statistics, you do need the case studies. But if you do that without the emotional intelligence and the soft skills and the tactical empathy, then who knows? You may hammer out some great sales, but I can't imagine it's sustainable, right?
Yeah. So then I guess more on back on a practical level of the actual email. So if you send out an original contact and they go, so I'm assuming the price usually isn't in the first one, and they reply not interested. So like going back to this the empathy sort of getting into their minds, what like specifically would you say at that point in time? Any examples that you could share for those that kind of listening in or whatever is that like what were the first type of sentence or words you would use to get that rapport? Like you just say, I understand, it's a big budget or that type of thing, or I understand like it might be, a little bit more than you're used to, or what would be your first sort of way to reach out to them?
So if they have originally stated interest, right? Either inbound or outbound, it doesn't matter. If they have originally stated interest, yes, I am interested in learning more about this domain name. I, at that point, try to pre-qualify them, because we work on too many domains and do too much outreach to have a big heart-to-heart intervention with every person that says, I'm not interested. So we try to really pre-qualify them and say, okay, just so you know, domain names are very expensive. You may not be able to afford this, depending on the company. Some companies we know can, and we don't say that, right? And so I just want to set expectations, right? And I normally don't say you probably can't afford that. In fact, I think I've said that one time in the past 6 months to a guy who was really being a, can I say dick? He was really being a dick.
You can say that.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that this is for you. I don't think you can afford it. And it was actually really effective. It was it was humorous. I mean, it was humorous to like watch him like respond to that. But normally we just say, hey, just want to set expectations here. Thank you for your interest. Just kind of want to check in and set expectations, right? Here is what domains like this typically sell for: data point, data point, data point, data point. You know, given that and all associative metrics, the seller is looking for, like, and you know, we'll do a range to kick it off. Is that in range for you? If that range of comparable sales is something that you could have a conversation around, you know, let's talk. Let's hop on a phone call or a Zoom tomorrow or Thursday. What's your availability like? And that tends to work really, really well, because we either get someone say, yes, 6 figures, 7 figures, what have you, is in range for me. I want to learn more. Or they say, oh my gosh, my budget was $5,000. And then let's not waste anybody's time. So I find that that's really effective. Now, once we've gone past that, say, for instance, I can't get them on the phone and they just are like, give me price, give me price, give me price. And so I give them a price. I obviously don't just give them the price. I give them the entire picture and worldview around the price. And then if they come back and say, oh, I'm not interested, then obviously I'm assuming it's not the search volume, it is the price. And so I'll respond at that point and say, hey, thanks for your reply. I'm assuming this is a function of price. You know, if so, you know, and if this is true, like if so, the owner is open to negotiation, the seller is open to negotiation. I've bridged greater distances than this. Let's get on the phone and see what might be possible, particularly since I realize that you need funding. And what would this domain name do for you for funding? And I have a white paper, how do premium domains help with funding? You know, you would have it immediately as your name and your email address, and talk about the instant credibility and how would that help you be more attractive to VCs, and like, how would we model out this for that, blah, blah, blah. So if you're open to that, guess what? We could, you know, you could, you know, we could secure the domain name with a down payment, mutually executed sales and purchase agreement, do escrow.com domain name holding, and then we'd have a balloon payment due, or we'd have monthly payments due, or what. Every client's different as far as what they're open to, right? And but that's my job, is to find, you know, there's not always point A. There's point A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So what is the right way to maximize value on this asset? And so again, it's having the right tools in your toolbox and knowing when and how to use them.
Yeah. On that note, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, buckleymedia.com, Kate does have resources available for people that you share on there. You're quite good with sharing sort of ideas and content and things like that. Yeah. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone asked me on Twitter the other day if they could, you know, use or quote the things that I had created. And I said, yes, just go to buckleymedia.com and click on resources. And I said, the only thing that I ask, and I'll say that again here as well, is that you appropriately credit and cite Buckley Media when you do use that content. But yeah, I created it to make our industry better as a whole.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, there's what's important about this industry is that it's, you know, the information and data and tactics also, or just resources. It makes it a lot easier, because I think many people come in and they're not too sure what to use, what to what sort of, what the forms are, what even information other companies want. And
Right.
having stuff like that there really helps. And like the counters, I think is good as well. Like yeah, I know a lot of people, and even if it's just as simple as the list you have of the top sales, right? Sometimes referring just to that, it's like, oh, like somebody says, oh, it's too expensive. Yeah, but I'm just trying to sell it to you for $5,000. Look at this list. It's like, it's like voice.com, $30 million. Well, okay. It's like 5,000. Okay. Maybe it's not so bad, or whatever the number is. But yeah, so I'm trying to think what else we kind of got a little bit roundabout everywhere. What else did I want to ask you? I know. So I think maybe before we get a little bit to the, I don't know how you're doing for time, but I think I would feel a little bit miss. One thing I do appreciate about you is your drive to not necessarily hide all the prices of domains, right? So maybe we can, like, if you could share some of your bigger domains, just so we can have it here for people to listen to. But then also we can maybe go into why, I know it's important for you, why that sort of information is important to be out in the open. But I know like let's see, some of the ones you've done recently. I'm just looking at my list here. Like chocolate, we have a range in, right? That's like into the seven figures. The sleeping snoring one, I think you're allowed to say that one.
Yes.
What I'll be doing deeply on Saturday.
Exactly.
So that was just over $1 million, right?
Correct. That one's a
Yeah.
fun story as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the agenda, refi. What were the amounts from those ones? Are you allowed to say those ones, or
Yes, I am. Let's see.
just to give you some people a context that
Yeah, yeah.
how Cape Buckley is a real big bad.
Let's see. I sold, well, and again, some of these are quite old at this point, given what the market's done, but like
Or
Agenda,
anything recently,
yeah, agenda.com I sold in 2017 for 225,000. Inspection.com I sold in February of 2018 for 335,000. Trying to look for the ones that don't have NDAs.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Let's see, you mentioned sleeping and snoring. I sold those for a combined just over seven figures in the summer of 2018. You mentioned chocolate. I am allowed to say a range on that.
Okay.
I sold that for low to mid seven figures in Q1 of 2019. Let's see, what are some other fun ones? Oh, NDA. Let's see. A lot of NDAs.
Do your NDAs have a time expiration, or are they forever?
No, there's only been, well, I'll tell you that one in a second. Engage.com, just over 800,000 in December of last year. And then some, fun ones this year with, e-bike, just over $1 million, and no NDA. Anyway, and then the two that I'm working on, I'm very excited about. I can't say anything about them because they haven't closed yet, but some really exciting oneword.coms in the low to mid seven figures. Are
you allowed to say the names without the prices, or not?
No, it's too, yeah, we're in the thick of it. But I said I was going to go back and tell you something. You mentioned, what was I going to say?
We're going to phone calls, emails. After that, after the emails, after the data points, what sort of information to include. We've kind of done a bit of that.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know. You mentioned sleeping and snoring.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. That was a Roy Messer one. And
okay.
That was really fun. I thought I had it sold to Philips, and Philips was going to, there are no NDAs, and Roy's given me carte blanche to share. I don't think I'm going to say anything that would upset anyone, but Philips was going to buy sleeping.com for a nice price. And, but they're a big company, and they're just, just so many cogs, so many wheels, just spinning. And meanwhile, I'd been talking to another entrepreneur about buying it. And so at the end of the day, I got on the phone with him. Lovely guy. Adore this guy. He's so smart. He so gets the power of domains. And he got on the phone, and I'm like, look it, just match Phillips, just match it. And then just match them and just close first. And because I would rather you get it anyway. I just would rather see the little guy win. And so he ended up buying both sleeping and snoring. It was such a fun negotiation. We were back and forth on the phone, and we went from here to here in 45 minutes. And then it was the fastest close. Jackson Elsgood at escrow.com said it was the fastest 7-figure close he's seen in his life. We closed it in 4.5 hours on a Friday as Todd and I were driving down to San Diego.
Oh, on your intermittent connection there that we often hear on a Clubhouse. Yeah. But I love that sale because it brought up a deeper discussion with domains, which I don't, maybe not go too far in the side thing, but it was like people were saying, no, a word that I've never really used before, but the gerund, right? The ing, is that it, gerund? Like people were saying, no, those don't sell. It's like, yeah, they're okay, but you're never going to get 7 figures or whatever it is, anything close to that. And you prove them all wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fun, isn't it? Isn't it fun when someone's like, that can't be done. And you're like, well, but maybe it can. Yeah. So like with sleeping and snoring, people told me in the industry that, look, they're not worth any money. They're gerunds. They're just, maybe what's someone going to give you like 75 grand a piece, maybe, right? Yeah. And then, so it's fun to really believe. It's not fun unless you really believe in it. But if you really believe in it, plus you love your clients, it's super fun to go, no, you know what? I'm going to keep working until I get them 7 figures. Same thing with e-bike. I was told by so many people in this industry, it's too generic. It's not worth anything. I won't give you more than, like my client would never pay more than $100,000, or it's not worth more than $200,000. I think was the highest anyone in the industry ever offered me on behalf of a client. And I kept going, no, it's a 7-figure name. And they're like, you're smoking crack. And I'm like, well, am I? So, no. I know that everyone means well, I'm sure, at least I hope they do. But, at the end of the day, it's not over until escrow closes. You never know what something's going to sell for. And, and you also, I get not upset, but it bothers me when people pile on, people when they perceive that the sale is too low. That happens a lot. I'm sure you've seen that happen on Twitter and Name Pros and wherever. That's really concerning too, because you have to understand all the factors at play, right? Especially if one is a broker, because it's not your name, it's your client's name. Yeah. And your client may have said, I need to sell this to make QER. Yeah. Or I'm an individual and I need to sell this to pay my mortgage, Kate. I need you to flip this for me and I need it done within a week.
The time factor. Yeah, that's what people don't understand, is that in domains. And so the people who are naysayers or who are saying, oh, it didn't sell high enough, we'll empathize with them. We'll say, yes, you're right. If given an unlimited amount of time with an unlimited amount of potential buyers, this could sell for this amount at some point in time. But, when I'm assuming that when you're a broker, that at some point in time isn't usually why people go to a broker, right? It's because they want that point in time to be, sooner than later, if not by a specific date. And I appreciate that. And I do notice that sometimes. And that's what people don't realize, is that, sell-through rates, optimal value at sell-through rates mean that, they're out there in the ether for people to get on when they need it. And you'll sell one here, one there at optimal values, but because that buyer was there at that time. And when you're a broker, you go out to the buyer when it's not necessarily their optimal time, right? They might not be ready for that. It's your job to get them ready.
No, you're absolutely right. And, and we're really lucky in that we work with a lot of clients who are very patient and take that long range view. And they're like, you do your thing. Like, I trust you and I'm not in a hurry. But we do get clients who come to us and say, this is time sensitive for me. Can you help me? Or it might be a long time client who just runs into something that they need a liquidity event. And my fiduciary responsibility is to my client, right? So, which means I am client directed, which means if he or she says, I want you to maximize value on this, I don't care if it takes a year, 2 years, I don't care, maximize value, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say no to, do you know how many times I say no to offers well above reserve? I say no because I am in it to maximize value for my clients. And they know that I'm doing that. And I'm doing that with their blessing. Because I'm like, look do you trust me? I really think we can get you more. So I'm going to say no to this because I know we can get you more. And I do, right? Obviously, or I wouldn't keep doing it. But there are cases where the client says, look, if you can get me anything in this range, that's what I need right now for a liquidity event. Please just do it. Then that's what I'm going to do. Because I think sometimes brokers can forget that they're not our names. They're our clients' names. We serve at our clients' pleasure, if you will. So I think that that's important to keep in mind. For the general public, I mean, most people are lovely, 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 lovely in this industry. But when you have naysayers sort of piling on, judging a sale, it's like, well, you don't really know what went into this sale. There were a lot of factors, whether that was timing or client direction, or maybe there really only was, depending on factors of the name, 1 or 2 really qualified end users.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine for names like that, like you'd think you'd say, okay, this company, it's worth this much. They should be able to spend this, but it's not. It's got to go through, different levels, like in marketing and all these other things. And all those people are basically putting their jobs on the line if it goes wrong, right? And so a lot of them are hesitant to rock the boat to make change. I know, like a lot of times, like it would, where I work, it's like people. Traditionally, there's never any change because nobody wants to take a risk. Right. And when you're buying a big domain like that at a certain price point, whoever's making that decision is taking a risk. From our end, it might be a no-brain decision, right? We know that domain will deliver them value, that they'll be able to leverage and make a lot more money for their company. But, whoever you're in negotiations with, they might not know that, right? They might not understand the potential of a good domain and how that can elevate their brand. If you're lucky, you'll find somebody marketing or whatever it is that will understand that. But I know a lot of times people are they're not prepared to spend 7 figures because if it doesn't go right, that's their job, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Which is why I always prefer to deal with CEOs.
For
exactly that reason. Because think about it. For us, if you're dealing with marketing, you're taking their budget.
Yeah.
In most cases, even though it's a capital improvement, in most cases, it comes out of marketing budget. And so if you get pushback from marketing, don't be super shocked because you're taking their money.
Yeah.
So if you can, I know this might sound like I'm stating these uber obvious, but talk to the founder, co-founder, president, CEO, talk to the head decision maker if at all possible. You'll save yourself a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, it might not always work with like 2-word domains, but you never know. I got good ones. Actually, you know what? That's not even true, right? Green Street was one of your ones. I don't know if I'm pretty sure you're allowed to say because I've heard it, but even at 2word.com, you're able to get. Can I say?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was public.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was it was 100 or 105 or it was around 100K. I think it was 100,000.
Let's see. Yeah. It was just over 100K. Yeah.
So I mean that to me is like that brings me hope. It's like it's when you're able to be able to explain to somebody, like again, that to me is more impressive than some of these other ones, right? To me, when you're able to explain to somebody the value of a 2-word, it's a good 2-word domain, but it's like it's not green, it's not street, it's a 2word.com. And for you to be able to, I would love, actually, maybe you send me a CC of that, but I'd love to see how you got that progressed to that point. It's for a 2word.com that usually you won't have too many comps for. It's it must have been an interesting negotiation, that one.
Yeah, well, that one was one where it was that gut instinct. I knew who should buy it. Yeah. And the old CEO and I didn't see eye to eye on value. He left. I kept them in my sights and a new CEO was brought on board. So I pounced and he got the value proposition. Yeah. And we were able to arrive at the sales price. And then, it's and right before that, this one's under NDA, but I can say it was another 2word.com that I honestly didn't think was going to be worth that much, but I was doing it as a favor to someone that I thought was wonderful. And he believed in it. And I thought, okay, well, I'm here to learn. So I'm going to try. And I sold it for over 200,000. And it was a name that I literally was taking on as a favor.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, but that's the great thing I love about our industry is if you're open-minded and you're teachable and you're curious, which I think most of us are, we wouldn't be here. You're always going to be learning and growing and iterating, and it's never a dull moment.
Yeah, I think maybe looking back at your progression of working with the actual the website themselves and the media company. I think that maybe gives you a little bit of a better insight to connecting with who potentially could see or elevate or leverage the domain to the highest value, right? Because I think a lot of people they might not see who the best buyer is, best case scenario. I just by talking to you, I could tell that when you say you just know, I don't think it's a magical thing. Although not to say you're not magical, but I think it's a combination of your experience of the little the media company, having that what is it, Palm Springs, and your experience there, even if you weren't selling the domain, but just knowing what people need to make a successful website or media company, and because you have that knowledge, you could see it in others and connect them to that domain. So I think the fact that you might be one of the more successful brokers, I think it makes a little bit more sense after talking to you a little bit. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get a couple of questions. How are you doing on time?
Yeah, I am fine if you want to do a couple more questions.
Sure.
And I want to say that I love what you just said, and it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. And not to sound like Oscar Wilde and quote myself, but experience ignites intuition.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. Think about it.
Yep. Very very true. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after talking now. Yeah, so we don't have if you guys have any questions, you put them in the Q&A. Very quick one is what is the typical length on a transaction negotiation? Yeah, you already said 40 user. No, wait, was it 4.5 hours or something like that? Well, 45-minute phone call.
Oh, that was but
typical.
Something I've been working on, and I just got him from here to here in 45 minutes, but I've been working on him for a while. And every single one is different. I wish there was, because everyone asks me this all the time, right? Whether it's a new client or someone else in the industry. I mean, I get this question a lot, how long does it take? I mean, one of the domain names that I mentioned that I can't say because we're still in the middle of negotiation, but it's a oneword.com. The bid is currently at mid-7. I took it on 4 months ago. So, if I'm successful in closing this out, that'll be a pretty quick turnaround for a sale of that at that level, right? Now there are other ones that have taken, e-bike was 2 years, start to finish, to get it from 50,000 to over $1 million. Let's see. Yeah, it's just, I sold another domain name in a weekend, literally a week. like someone was supposed to be working on it for us and it just wasn't a good fit. And so I was like, oh, let me see what I can do with it. I'm kind of bored on a Saturday. I sold it in a weekend. So, but that was an anomaly. Right. And it wasn't a very high value domain. I mean, I think I sold it for like 80,000 or something. It was another one that I was kind of just doing as a favor. So it's just all over the board.
Okay. Here's more of a little bit technical one. So quoting fundamentals of the domain, is it good or bad at the start? And when is the best time to do it?
Sorry, can you
like quoting the fundamentals, like when you get into the details of like, you get your, you give a kind of like, you get your spreadsheet or your data and all that stuff. Like when would you start with that? Do you usually wait a few exchanges first before really pouring on the data, or do you do it almost right from the start?
I believe in sort of a drip system of information because people have limited attention spans, right? And especially if it's via email, they have limited time. And, most executives that you're going to be pitching are going to be reading oh my goodness, look at all these messages, are going to be reading them on your phone like this, right? Like you can see I have like 2 lines of each message and I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So I think that in your initial communications, you need to make your subject line and your first sentence, even your second sentence, be your workhorses. They need to, you need to ask yourself, look, if this person didn't read anything else of my email, would that be enough to pique their interest? So I think, forget about data. I think just think in that term, like what can you front load this pitch with? Because it's a pitch, isn't it? What can you front load this pitch with? Whereas if they just read the subject line and the first sentence or two, they would be like, I mean, maybe let's talk, and click, right? So I would just think about it in that way. And then if you want to go, and by the way, here are a couple high level metrics, or by the way, here's a quote or a mini case study, absolutely, layer that in, and then you can build. Again, you're building. You can build it from there.
Okay. And the question I can't believe nobody asked, but in conjunction with that, which I think is probably the one question most people want to know the most, is when do you start talking price?
Yeah, that's a great question too. And again, I don't believe in hard and fast rules to this or to many things really, because so much is contextual and complex. I think it depends, right? If I'm trying to really maximize value and get 7 to 8 figures on a domain name, I'm not going to be like throwing that out on the first email. If it's just a quick and easy down and dirty buy it now, that a client is like, look, here's my buy it now price. I want it gone in 90 days. Go do your thing. That's a different conversation, isn't it? Right? I'm going to be using different tactics. So again, I think I covered this a little bit earlier, where I try to pre-qualify them with a range and anchor them with some really carefully curated comparable sales. And then, again, if they write back and say, oh, my budget's 5,000, well, great. I haven't wasted their time. They haven't wasted my. But if they're like, okay, I mean, I hadn't budgeted 8 figures, but I had budgeted 7, then it's like, okay, well, let's get on the phone and see what could be possible here.
Yeah. So to take it down a level, because, I know you as Kate Buckley, who's the, linguist expert, you know this, but I think some people are curious, like, how would you, like, what phrase would you use, like, to when you're talking that, again, that the pricing thing, you give a range, but how would you say that? Typically, I know it's a very specific question that might throw you off because you probably don't think about it. It comes naturally to you. But like, I think some people are just, they don't know how to make it to that next level to actually start talking numbers.
Well, I think it's simple. I mean, I think if you're trying to sell a domain name for 150,000,
yeah,
you would say that you or your client or whomever is entertaining offers in the low to mid 6 figures. Is that in range?
Okay.
Right.
Is that that's see what you just said there? Is that in range? I think that's what people are looking for, right? It's like how do I set it up without looking like I'm just like trying to maximize everything out of you, and like just that simple thing. I think, is that in range? Okay. That one little thing you said there, I think will give a lot of people
because that'll tell you everything you need to know, and if it's your domain and you'd really take a lot less and they come back and say, oh, wow, you've blown me away. Like my budget was 50,000. Then you could say, well, let's get on the phone. We might be able to work something out. Right. So you never know, you can pivot from there, and you might, and again, I'm not saying my way is right. I'm saying it works for me. I'm sure there are many other very successful brokers out there who would disagree with me and who would do something completely different. I think you have to A/B test and iterate and find what works best for you and the type of domain names that you are either selling or representing, because I don't believe that there is a one size fits all approach. Even in the domain names that we as Buckley Media are brokering, we don't take a one size fits all approach. We might have a very different tactic for an empty vessel, short one word, very high value brand versus a more like utilitarian category definer. We know what we want for it, dry, go, So consider context.
Okay. Another question is, at what point, well, I guess it's hard to explain the value of domain. I guess if somebody's not so sure what you could sell it for, but like what type of domain would you take on at this point in time? Like
So
I've had Green Street. I would never dream of going to you to pitch it because I would never have dreamed it would sell for $100,000. You know what I mean? So it's like, so is there a certain type or a certain thing you're just doing one words now, or?
At this point, we are our plate is really full. So unless someone comes to me with a domain name that absolutely knocks my socks off, and I think I can sell for mid 7 to 8 figures, I would probably respectfully request that you circle back to me in a couple months. Because I really don't like to take on too much work at a time, because I really like to give proper attention and consideration to every single domain name under Buckley Media Brokerage. And that does not mean signing up joeschmo.com, whatever, and just throwing it on a website and forgetting about it. I know sometimes that's done. It's not the way I do business. So I tend to be very, very curated and careful about what I take on as a result of that. I actually took on one yesterday that I really love, that fits the definition of that short one word empty vessel killer brand, and that is raft.com.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that fun?
Takes you somewhere on an adventure, right?
Raft.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It could be cybersecurity, it could be insurance, it could be SaaS, it could be project management. It's just I
love it because it's like, no, it takes you off that desert island into hopefully back home or whatever.
Ferries you safely. You're all in it together. Plus it's an adventure. Plus it's a fun, short, 4-word, 1 syllable, easy to say, spell, passes the radio test. I love it. This client's fabulous. We have 2 more of her domains too that we've very recently taken on, pup.com, and we're already in very high level alternate conversations. We're not, it's not an escrow or anything, but we're having some very fun, very high level conversations about pup.com, and then concert.com. That's another one that I think is fun because couldn't that be empty vessel?
I think we spoke about that on Clubhouse, and I love that brand.
Right.
I love that brand.
Totally. You got it right away.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Like
you're working
Microsoft with their big platform, everything works together. Yeah.
That's it. Concert. Yeah.
I love
Those
that.
Those are the kind of domain names that I get excited about these days.
Well, let me check my inventory. No, I don't have any of those.
I'm sure you will though very soon.
At some point. So I know also on if you have time at the end, maybe a couple more, but I know I wanted to get to one thing that I wanted you to share. We got to one point a conversation on Clubhouse, and we I think got detoured and kind of sidestepped at one point. But you were saying that there's certain elements of this industry that you wanted to sort of change and evolve. And I think, it had to do with basically the price points. Like that's deliberately earlier on, even when we were kind of getting full with all these other stories, I wanted you to share some of the domains you sold at certain prices. And again, I think that was the type of thing you were trying to, I don't know, instill change, or I guess not everybody reports, but there's a serious lack of data points in this industry. And I guess maybe I'll give you the platform a bit just to share what you were thinking on that front when we kind of didn't finish that point in Clubhouse, but we can finish it now because nobody's here to interrupt us.
Thank you. I think that's actually a great topic to finish up on. I know I've been talking your ear off for quite a while now.
It's been, I've loved every minute of it.
Well, thank you. You're very gracious. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you all.
And you even stayed with me when I accused you of not liking my dog.
I'm like, you know what a dog lover I am.
I know.
Like
I'm
my
sorry.
heart.
I'm sorry, but I actually see here in the chat, Richard says that you were part of hotdog.com selling.
No. I think he said he saw it listed
On the list. There we go. Yeah, sorry, per
publicly
Buckley
reported
Media.
sales.
That.
Yeah, I didn't sell that, but what
Yeah,
about the
you
name?
wouldn't have sold that. You would have given that to me and Steamy, right? That's right.
Totally.
Okay, sorry. So let's get down that
Yeah.
soapbox,
Okay.
it's important.
Yeah. So just kind of what you and I were chatting about on Clubhouse previously, is that I believe that transparency is good for our industry. Transparency in every regard that one can ethically and legally be transparent. So look at the real estate industry. We have comps, we have data maps, because everything is public information. Now, fast forward, how many of you are into NFTs? Right? I'm sure pretty much everyone in this quote unquote room is interested in NFTs, owns one or a bunch of NFTs, or at least is curious. In fact, I bought my first NFT a number of weeks ago. It's one of Damien Hirst's The Currency, and it's already like, oh my God, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just like not even real. It's like blows my mind, but I'm like, okay, this is fun. But anyway, my point is, look what they're doing with NFTs. Look at what OpenSea is doing. Go to OpenSea.io and type in any NFT that you're interested in, and you will see, here's the floor.
Yeah.
Here's the floor. And then you'll be able to rank what's available, what's publicly viewable by price low to high, price high to low, newest listed, newest sale, blah, blah, blah. What does that do? It ignites excitement. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. People want to buy and sell. They want to see, and that gives them data points. Can you imagine the excitement we can ignite for domain names if we could publicly list them and have all the prices publicly recorded, and we could be like data point, data point, data point, or, oh, this just sold for this. Like, and also, let's be honest, like just like with NFTs, it kind of feeds the ego, because some of these domain names, whether they're for individuals or for companies, do have an ego purchase component. Right. So that would, feed into that as well.
Some sales that were deliberately made public because of that. I know a couple of,
that's right.
What was it? There were a couple of the, one of the NGTLD sales was like 503,000, and they specifically spent the extra 3,000 so they would be the number one. That is exactly it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So, is it a perfect system? No, there's no perfect system, but I think that a push toward more aggregation of pricing data and more transparency as far as the process is only going to drive sales. If we really want to be taken seriously as an industry, we need greater transparency, and we need greater public reporting. Some brokerages, and I know that they have their reasons. You do what's good for you, but they have a policy of not reporting any sales. That's not the policy that Buckley Media has. Obviously, many sales were not able to report because it's a term of the sale, right? So I'm not going to go, I'm not going to sell you this 6 or 7 figure domain name because I've signed NDA. I'm going to sign the NDA because that's what's right for my client. But wherever I can, I advocate for transparency and I advocate for reporting. So I just think that all boats rise in a rising tide, and that's something that benefits all of us. So on that note, I just want to thank you, my friend, for having me on. It was so fun just to hang out with you and chat and all the great questions. So appreciate everyone joining us. Always amazing having you on. We always have great discussions, and it's like I had all these things here and there. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna talk with Kate because your route to where you are today, I find really fascinating, and it all makes sense. With your background, the logic, and the stats, and I know we've exchanged some emails before, and exactly that. Like you're one of the people who actually appreciates my details. It's like sometimes some people go, it's too much stuff there, but it's all kind of necessary. It's like you need to explain stuff, and so thank you for appreciating my stuff. But really, more than anything else, thank you for being here. Thank you for being such a joy in this industry. Thank you for providing the resources that you do. Thank you for fighting to have more transparency. And I guess that's enough. Thanks. Yeah, thanks again. It's been great. Really
Oh,
appreciate it. So again, Kate Buckley, you can reach her at buckleymedia.com. Is there probably a form there to get in touch with you, or you
yes.
know what? I think she's busy right now. Go to Buckley Media in like November. Right? Was that the message I got before? I don't know. I don't know if I should be if you're seeing it, but go to Buckley Media. Check out the resources she has there. They're important tools in this industry, and it's great to have people like you just giving back a bit, and those little things really help. Coming on here really helps. I know today, actually, for having both of you here today, I feel like, I don't know. Well, again, like pick up the phone or whatever it is, but probably maybe Monday next week or whatever it is. But it's really motivating to kind of see you guys, the leading brokers in the industry, really propel and take these domains that we would think that would sell for a certain price and put them up. Again, for me, you're my hero for these other ones, but to me, the Green Street, you're my biggest hero, because you took a domain that's like kind of in my wheelhouse, and you put it up there. And not only did you put it up there, but you put it up there with the price tag so that I can show people looking for my domains, oh, you don't think my domain is worth it? Here's a twoword.com sold for $100,000, and so thank you for that. So thank you. Thank you, Kate. I'll let you get going, but any parting words you have, or
I just want to thank you for putting this week together. And I'm really excited and encouraged, as someone who came into this industry a long time ago, in 1998, and started going to those conferences with David and Michael. I'm so encouraged by the passion and the energy and the new blood that I see in this industry. It's become more diverse. It has become more accepting. It's become there's just more resources. It's become more intellectually rigorous, if I can say that. Anyway, I just want to thank you all for being a part of it, because you make my job easier, and it also makes it a lot more fun. Like, doesn't it? A lot more fun. Oh, speaking of fun, I see that Brad Arthur just wrote in the chat, "You are whiskey in a teacup." Thank you, Kate. He's referring to this little sign placard behind my head that my grandmother sent me. So thanks for seeing that, Brad. That's Berta's sense of humor, but I'm glad you appreciate it too. Yeah. And by the way, this is not whiskey in a teacup. This is mint tea.
I'm not judging. This is water. I've been.
Yeah. Oh, I've got that. I'm well hydrated.
Yeah. All right, Kate. I feel so weird, like booting you out. So I don't know. It's just so. it's like I can't remove Kate Buckley, but I really appreciate it once again. Yeah, thanks again for everything you do and for sharing everything you did today. It's appreciated.
Thank you all. Take care. We'll chat soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Oh, okay, guys. She left for me. So, wow. What a day. Pretty awesome. Yeah. So I don't have to say anything. Chris and Kate, but really thanks immensely for today. Really motivating. If you guys are, I don't know why you're all still here. You should be on the phone outbounding your domains. That's it's about what it is. So I'm just gonna take a couple minutes just to talk about this week again a little bit more. And then anybody here is welcome to put your hand up. I saw one or two people with your hands up, as we did before. We will I'll get everybody in. We'll do a little bit of social. So the first part, I will not stop the recording and I will not stop the stream to YouTube. So anybody who comes up, please keep that in mind. It'll be recorded and you'll be on YouTube. And we're still on. I still have Clubhouse going. Yeah, Clubhouse is going still. So but before doing that, I'm just gonna say, the rest of the week is still. I still have 3 days left. Let's see if I can find the schedule and share it while we do this. Here we go. I will share screen with you all. Oh, whoops. No. Here we go. And that will make things a lot easier. Is it up? Yeah. So for the rest of the week, Well, first of all, you can go listen to the first 5 days, and well, today will be up by the time this, you're listening to this. If you're not listening to this live, go to live.domainerweek.com. That goes to the YouTube channel, which will now be DomainPodcast, the YouTube channel. So yeah, go to live.domainerweek.com. You'll be able to see previous days. You'll be able to see previous domain socials we had in the past. You'll be able to see some of the domain panels we had in the past, including the one with Kate Buckley. I think I want to say it was late last year. And then you'll be, again, day one was like Paul Nix and Ron Jackson. Paul Nix, VP from GoDaddy. Ron Jackson, the coolest cat in this industry by far. DN Journal. Michael Seiger, legend here. Jason Shepard and Josh Reason, two very insightful domain investors, really, really top of the game. That was all just day one, right? Then we also, in the middle, we had Greg McNair here. He's also involved in domain space, but he's one of the board members at Water School. So he's explaining, what Water School does. And the point of this week, I'll tangent to that. It was all last minute. I kind of started it. I literally almost didn't do it on the 13th of this month. It was that's when I kind of, the 13th was when I said, okay, it's a go. So, and at that point it was just, maybe like 2-3 panels, probably 3 panels maybe, and it just kept on growing thanks to people like Chris and Kate who got on board. So this is basically, it was a rush. So because of that, I don't know what to expect. I want this all to be for free. Even those who sponsored, it's also free. People who, some of the spots there. And all I'm asking for is that if you see value in this week, which if you don't after today, just go to donate.domainerweek.com. There's a fundraiser there. There's going to be 5 different charities that are supported. So that money will be divided between them. All the information is there. Go to domainerweek.com. Top of the schedule, you'll see, actually scroll up. You'll see a little box there which says charity fund. Everything's there. So if you see value, go there. And you know what? You don't even need to donate to the fund. Go donate to one of the causes. Donate to one that connects with you the most. Water School is a great charity. Fighting cancer. I've a couple of friends this year who've been hit with cancer. If you're in the United States, I recommend Fred Hutchison. If you're in Canada, Canadian Cancer Society. A personal thing of importance for myself is third world education. UNESCO is the United Nations fund. They have that. There's also another charity called Entrepreneurs for Knowledge. There's a connection there with the domain industry as well. Their board, like Water School, they absorb all the costs so that 100% of the money raised goes to the charity. So that's efk.org. Water School is waterschool.com. I think they have both the org and the com, but it's me pointed out it's the com. Internet Commerce Association. They're internetcommerce.org. I'm a member. So if you're a domainer who's doing well in this business, they go out to these, big ICANN meetings with all this bureaucracy, and they send out, it's Camila and Zach who really do a lot of work there. But Zach is basically the lawyer representing us at all these meetings when there's a room full of 30 other lawyers that all represent trademark owners, and they want to change the UDRP rules and make it less favorable for us. They're there to fight that. So, internetcommerce.org, if you can be a member, $25 a month it starts at, and it really is going to help us a lot. There's also a fellow domainer, Thomas Groh. You guys remember the exciting time we had last year after the unofficial after party of the first Online Names Con, where there was a big bidding war for kettlebell.com with Amar and Drew, and that was a real fun time. He's unfortunately had a very, very serious bout with COVID. He's been in the hospital for a few weeks on a respirator. Less than a week ago, the doctor said it wasn't, well, I don't want to get too much in details, but the good news is he's far from out of the woods, but he's progressed. He's not at the lowest level anymore. So that's good. There's a link to his GoFundMe. And again, if you want to go to donate.domainerweek.com, it goes to the GoFundMe I set up, where the money will be shared between those all those causes. And so that's about it. If you want to join us, again, there's going to be YouTube, live.domainaweek.com. There is Clubhouse, where I'm streaming to you guys right now. And I'm sorry if I don't reset the room every hour. It's just that Chris and Kate are just way too engaging to take a break and reset the room. So I hope you're able to keep along. It's always better on visual. I hope you can check it out on YouTube. But also, the best way by far is coming into the Zoom sessions, right? Like we do every Friday, the Domain Social, which is going to be transforming. I'll get into that in the days ahead. I want to start the social right now, though. So I will just say that if you want to come join us, go to thedomainsocial.com, subscribe. And anytime I do an event like this, I send out an email right before, and you guys just click the Zoom link and you come in on Zoom and you could chat with everybody. You can use the Q&A as well. And then after the session, like I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna ask anybody if they want to put their hands up and come on the panel, and we could talk about whatever it was today. And then at a certain point, we start talking about everything else. So I think that's that. Yeah. So the Domain Social is going to become Domain Podcast. So right now, to make it easy for you, just go to DomainPodcast.com. It forwards you to the Domain Social. And I think that's about it. So at this point, I'm going to do as I said I was going to do. I will, anybody with their hands up wants to come up. Bear in mind that we are recording and on YouTube. So, you can put your camera on. If you're going to talk, it's good. Richard's up. So yeah. Well, wow, what a day. Yesterday we had a few technical difficulties. Today was a little bit less, and a lot of fun. So Richard, I tried to elevate you. Anybody else want to come on as a panelist? We could talk for a bit about what happened today and everything else. And if not, then I'll probably stop the recording and the stream pretty quickly. Yeah, it'd be good to have a little chat. And so, share with everybody else what we do a little bit. Yesterday got cut short. Andrew Miller's son is basically on the Gulf Coast, and he's okay. But then Andrew's just in the logistics, which is I can empathize with of coordinating like what's next, right? So his son is safe. So that's why I can smile a little bit, But it's just a question of now, like how there's no power, no anything else. How do you get him home? So I'm sure Andrew will find a way. It's just between now and actually finding that way is going to be a lot of phone calls. So I'm appreciative he stayed on as long as he did. So guys, what's up? If I pulled you up, it's because you guys want to get involved in the conversation. Maybe I'll just turn to the Clubhouse. These guys are used to talking more. All right, you guys are all shy. I don't know why. Here we go, Andy. There we go. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Zoom is a little slow. Bear with me. Those of you in Club, actually, you know what? We could try this. Anybody in Clubhouse? So if basically if you have something to say, put your hand up. It might take a little while to get to you if people are talking here. But if you want to join in, bear in mind though, however, that I am still recording and that it is on YouTube. You'll be audio only, but we can experiment with that as well. We did that last week. It kind of worked out a bit. All right. Looks like nobody wants to talk, guys. If you're gonna put your hand up, because I want you to participate in the discussion. Otherwise, I'm all talked out. We'll keep this going, but unofficially. All right. You guys are too shy. All right, so I'm going to stop the YouTube right now and the recording. Thanks for watching, everybody. Sorry, my audience is they put their hands up, but they're not talking. So, all right, I'll stop that. And yeah, join us tomorrow. Go to the YouTube channel again. It only shows up after the refresh. After you refresh it, it shows up after it starts. You have to refresh it after the start time, which is going to be probably around 5 minutes to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Hey, Andy. Got anything to share before I cut off?
Or if nothing to share, you can shut off the YouTube. I just wanted to say what an awesome day it was, man. I'm really impressed with what you've been putting together this week. First time being involved in it. It's been incredible.
Yeah, what an awesome yeah. They're both just total leaders in this field. It's
I mean, they've given me a lot to think about and use. I mean, I've got so many notes today. It's crazy. So I really appreciate you guys putting this together. Kate and Chris were amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't personally heard them before, so to hear them talk has been incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're all over the place, right? So I encourage people to do that. Oh my gosh, Chris, I thought it was 800. I don't know. He's for a few years he'd taken a break lately. He seems to come back a bit, but he was like, his podcast 10 minutes a day. I don't know, it was 7 days a week. I think it was maybe 5 days a week, but like every day. And it's like just some of it is like, specifics to domains. Some of it's specific tips. Some of it's just inspirational. But all usually wraps it all back to domains. So that's, go to Zuiker.com, but it's Zuiker. So
yeah, I actually just connected with him on LinkedIn just to kind of follow him there with a bunch of things. I'll probably be following him in a lot.
He's a real, like the way he talks about domains reminds me of Frank Schilling, and that's like, that says a lot, right? Frank Schilling, I always play that video of his. It's a 2-minute long video, maybe even a little bit less, where he just talks about the power of a domain. And it's just the way he put that together, is the music in the background and all that stuff. It's just, it's like, it's great. So.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the tips that they gave and Chris's seven tiers or seven global positioning, leadership positioning, like just puts it into perspective as far as framing a conversation, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, it feels like he gave that information to kind of anybody that's doing an outbound or having that conversation, how they can kind of talk to someone and kind of give them the information that they're looking for. It was really good. Like I said, I was really impressed. I got a lot from today.
Yeah. I think all around it was great. Chris is very, actually both of them very detailed. Kate has she has a history in logic and stats. She said, right, but like she was also poet laureate for I don't know, was it Laguna Beach or Orange County? I don't know the regions there, but somewhere where she lives. So she's a poet who took stats. It's just, but that's what I love about domains, right? How it all comes in together. So
and Kate brought so much to the table too. I mean, it was just an incredible, both of them bringing so much, right? So I look forward to following both of them and getting more information from them. I do wonder, or wish I had the conversation, a question, but how much of their business they get from people coming in to buy domains with their help versus actually outbounding to people that they may not necessarily be aware of that are purchasing domains, right? So the cold call versus a warm lead.
Yeah, I wish I had more time for
that. No, it's so many more panels to happen. And so much more information to be done.
That's why I wanted to, that was the point of this. It's funny because like originally before Michael Zuiker stopped, took a break from doing the socials and was looking for, he put the word out, anybody wants to continue it, and that's why I put my hand up. But right before that, I was doing some after socials. Like he did his main one, and I would do a smaller group, like we called it the after party, whatever it was. And then but my plan was, if he's going to still doing that, I was going to still do these after party things, but I wanted to do a separate show with like the panels. Last year, if you go to the channel, the YouTube channel, you look further down on the page, there's what I call the domain panel, but it's more like technical talks or more specific one-on-ones. And that's what I kind of wanted to do. But then when Mike says, well, I'm taking a break from the socials, I might be stopping. I was like, okay, well, I can't let that happen, right? So then I did that. I did a little bit of both, but my original thing was I wanted to do like a panel and then have a discussion afterwards, like now. Except for everybody else is shy, except for you. So thanks for coming up. But yesterday, as soon as I stopped recording, everybody came out of the woodwork.
Yeah, no, it was tough.
I read a great
discussion. It kicked me off and then brought me back on. So it took a while, and it kind of had like a little bit of a hiccup for me to get on. So
yeah, Zoom. What happens with Zoom is it you go down and you restart Zoom as a panelist. It's like it restarts it, kicks you back in.
But great.
But there's also an old video with Chris and Tess on it was an old Sherpa when Tess was doing a one-on-one. I think it was a two-parter with Chris where they went over in detail the seven traits or 7 ways that a domain influences, or 7 ways the domain is important to your business. Or I forget exactly how he turned it. I just call it the 7. It's like it's just the 7. Chris is 7. You know what I mean? And it's a 2-part Sherpa, and definitely check that one out because he goes into further details it's really
I've definitely taken a mastermind in domains based on this week and just a lot of the other things I'm trying to listen to.
And tomorrow, I didn't even, so for those watching, whatever, so are listening, tomorrow, speaking of tomorrow, the first session is with the ICA. So the ICA, again, and I already said, so I won't get into too much, but they're an organization that really fights for domainer interests. Go to internetcommerce.org to go check and see what they do there. That's the first part. So they're going to be talking about what they do. They're going to be talking about also some potential changes to the URP. That's one of the things they're working on, right? Is they're trying to make sure that whatever changes are coming are good for us. And then the second panel is where are we here? Yeah, second panel is the legal dream team. Zach Muscovich, Stephen Lieberman, and John Berryhill tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, watch on YouTube, come on Clubhouse. These guys are going to explain the most common pitfalls domain investors make with domains, what to do when you get a URP, what types of domains to avoid. It is probably, I don't want to take away from anything that's happened so far, but I mean, it's one of the most fundamentally crucial sessions that you need to know when it comes to domain investing, because you want to stay away from those legal consequences, the ones that will get you into trouble. And then also Thursday we got one with Braden Pollock. Morgan Linton's going to be here. Then there's going to be a panel afterwards with Alvin Brown from Kickstart Commerce. That's another podcast you guys want to check out. He has great stuff. Sam Charles and Joseph, who were regulars on Domain Social, especially Joseph, who shared a very, very unique sale from, I think, is it last year now? From last year. So I won't really relive anything. I'll let him do everything. But yeah, so, and then all the rebroadcasts, the second day, last Friday, we had Margot from Brand Bucket and Darpin from Squad Help, who very graciously accepted being on the stage together to talk about brandables. That was just awesome.
Arif, I was actually going to ask you, being in the domaining industry for as long as you have, what have you learned the most from this week so far?
Oh, that I need sleep. You know what? Honestly, it's, obviously I reached out to a lot of these people. This is my first time trying to do something like this. And I started small and I was reaching out to people I already knew. So there were not a lot of big surprises, but there's the little details in there. Like actually a parallel with both Margot and Kate that I didn't really know, is that both of them had had taken like logic and that kind of sort of education. Like Kate was saying, stats. I can't remember the specifics with Margot, but it was similar too, and it really helped me understand like their mentality and how they approach things, and it seeing the background.
There are a lot of similarities. That's true.
Seeing the background and what they draw from in order to create what they're doing now. Like Kate as a brokerage, Margot as a platform. Darpin I already knew from before. Like, again, I don't want to play favorites because Darpin is amazing. Like he shares so much data in this industry, but beyond that, you could tell he's a really analytical guy. He thinks things through. He's very engaged with the actual platform. Like he's aware of what's going on there. I think both offer quite a bit to this community, but everything. Like, I mean, but the best thing for me though, honestly, as a former DJ, is talking with Ron Jackson. I said Ron Jackson is the coolest cat in this industry. He provides so much data and information, and he's so helpful to everybody. Like, I mean, just the amount of information he's provided over the years is foundational in this industry, right? Like if his information wasn't there, so many comps of the best comps would not be there around, and it's just so. But he's just also just a really cool guy. I can't wait till the next domain conference and have a drink with him there. So and it's all been great. So tomorrow is going to be a great one.
You're definitely making your stamp on the industry, Arif.
Yeah.
Definitely putting your stamp on it. So keep up the good work. You're definitely sharing a lot and giving a lot of good information. You see a lot of people not only on YouTube, but also on Zoom, and then also on the Clubhouse rooms. They're all listening. They're all wanting to hear it. So you're doing a great job.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is in rebroadcast too. Like day one's already over 300 views. I think a couple of the other ones are already over 200. Albert, did you have your hand up? I tried to get you in. Mike, I got Mike in. Yeah, Albert, if you didn't work, put it up again. Anybody else wants to come up before I stop recording can. Mike, what were your thoughts on today? You had a good day?
We need a singing recap, Mike.
Oh yeah.
I'm enthused because I got this deal going on where I'm about to make a phone call and hopefully close the deal.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Do it live. Today's the outbound day. It's a phone call day.
Yeah. I almost would, but not this time probably.
Okay.
I got an inquiry. I gave a price, and they came back with I wouldn't say exhaustive, but this price lookup and domain and GoDaddy says it's worth this much, and this is worth this much, and so we'll offer this. We think it's above market value, and it's like, well, you didn't really understand from me that I wasn't saying that. I quoted him a price of a comparable name for much higher than what I was asking. He thought I like had that name and I thought it was worth that much. He says it's only worth this much, and like a quarter of what it actually sold for. Well, actually that was a sale. So you're getting this for a lot less than what that is. Yeah. And I think that the price we have is pretty good. And so he's like, okay, well, what's the process? He says, give me a call this afternoon. So it sounds like it's real close to closing.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
I love hearing these stories of you guys selling these things. It makes me motivated too.
Congrats, Mike.
It's always so much fun when you get that momentum.
And then in the middle of Chris Zuiker's talk, I get this inquiry about a domain name, and it's like, I've got it's a web designer. I've got a client wants to know price expectations for this domain. It's like, all right.
Yeah. I remember the first two domain socials I hosted back in July of 2020. During both those, I got I can't remember if it was inquiries or offers or whatever, but both of them led to sales. And I was hoping that like every Friday until I stopped doing the socials, it would happen. But obviously,
I've had at least two socials where I was on the social and I got an afternick notification of a sale.
Nice.
So
there you go, everybody. You want to come on board? That's the best reason, right? Come on the social, you'll get stuff. Yeah, right. You'll get offers.
Well, here I am. Okay.
All right. Check your email box. Check your inbox.
I just did. Nothing yet.
There's nothing better than gaining that momentum. When you get like one and then another one, like it's just one is always like, okay, it's good, but like I've had a good year this year, but there was a point when it's supposed to be quiet in the summer, and there was within 3 or 4 weeks or something like that, I had like 4 like really nice sales back to back to back, and it was just like, oh, okay, and it's just like. First one closed, and there was an inquiry on the other one, and then before I knew it, that one closed. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's up? And then like few, I guess it was a week later, whatever it was, that the afternick email saying, those afternick emails are actually really fun because it's they say they've already, what did they say? We've not that they seized the funds, but we've what's the word they used? Like we've secured, that's it. We've secured the funds. Yeah. So it means like, oh, the money is already there and it's already at GoDaddy.
I've gotten that email once. So I mean, it was an inbound.
It's fun though, because it's done.
Absolutely.
It's never done until money's in the bank, but it's like with GoDaddy, there's a lot, there's a lot of stuff on their platform, moving parts that we'll maybe talk about another time. But
I have to correct you. If you're married, it's never done until the money's in your wife's bank.
Oh, okay. No, in my case, it's never done until I've paid for Steamy's treats. Is that it? To my dog's treats. But yeah. So when you get momentum, it's fun. But it takes a little bit of the size of a portfolio to get there. It's there are times when I don't sell a domain for a few weeks on end, and it is what it is. But at 3,000 domains, I'm at the point where it's like, I don't know month to month, but I've a fairly sure idea at the end of the year. Actually, that's a great topic we talked about on day one.
That was the best topic.
Yeah, I don't want to say my favorites. They're all my favorites, right? All these little grids on my schedule spreadsheet are all my children, and I love them equally. But that's what we're talking about. I think Michael Sager asked the question of, at what point did you become, probably stable. I don't know even how he worded it, but at what point did you have like a regularity? Did you have a little bit of stability?
Yeah.
And I think the answer was, in that $2,000 to $2,500 range, 25,000. Sorry, 2,000 to 2,500 domain range is where it kind of seemed to start. But even then, like at 3, it starts for me on an annual level, right? And then as the number of domains you own goes up, you'll start to maybe get consistency on the seasonal level, and then on the monthly level, and then then you'll have like 8 million domains, like huge domains or whatever they're at now, and they know pretty much every day that they're going to get between X and Y, but
and it depends on how ready that you are. Are you listed on Afternic? Do you have landing pages? Is it?
Yes.
Are you accessible?
Wait, is Mike? Oh no, Mike's listening on Clubhouse. I can hear him right now going, Arif, organize your portfolio. Let's go. Get all the landers up. I have some up, in my defense, but not all of them. Get them priced and go retake DN Academy, sorry. Because that's one thing I want to do at some point, because I went here, there, everywhere, and got everything I needed. It's freaking awesome. Actually, that's one thing I can say. If you guys are new to this industry, and if you can't afford it, go to dnacademy.com. Michael Zuiker has been truly inspiring for me, both just in the domain investing level, but also I want to give him extra thanks, Mike, that you're listening. I know you're there. Just on getting to this. Like, if this week would not have existed without Michael Zuiker at all, like even close to it. It's like all the time I spent listening to the oh my goodness. Yeah. I want to say hundreds of hours, because I can't say thousands. I know it's over 1,000 hours I spent listening to old Sherpas while walking my dog. I don't know if it's 2,000, so I don't know if it's plural or singular, but 4 figures of hours worth of listening and re-listening to all those old Sherpas. If you want to succeed in this business, get a dog. That's all I can say. Get a dog that likes to walk, and and then listen to old Sherpas, listen to the new Sherpas, right? Listen to the other podcasts. For me, when I started, it was also Andrew Allman on for DN Wire, Domain and Wire. But now, like Alvin and Keith, there's all Alvin and Keith are doing great ones, and next time you guys see Josh Reason online, show him some love. Tell him you miss his podcast. That's what he was talking about last time. I miss his podcast. I really liked his. It was really informative. You maybe tell him he doesn't have to do it every day, although I would love that. But yeah, Josh Reason had a great one, and there's tons. I know I'm always missing one, so that's why I don't like listing them. But
hey Arif, question for you. When Chris Zuiker was talking through the domains that were purchased, and he was saying like Stairs was purchased by something Stairs, right? Like there were 2 words and they upgraded to stairs.com. Remember, like he went through that list and he said you got a name bio. Is that a report? Is that?
I'm not sure.
Something that you can get to see who purchased and what they came from to where they got to.
You know what? I've had such an exciting day. I forget whether it was Stairs or Stairs.
He gave a couple of examples. He gave Oxygen.io. He gave Stairs. He gave a couple of them.
Yeah, so, it was certainly a longer one. I almost want to say it was almost 3 words.
Yeah, there's one
before and after.
Stairs was a sale. Name bio has Stairs at 67,000 a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so
I sounds like it was that one.
I saw those. I saw the sales themselves on name bio, and I tracked those, but I didn't know how he found out who upgraded to Stairs.com. Is it because he maybe went to Stairs.com and went to Web Archive to see it? Maybe like.
I know he was. Yeah, he was.
To see how
maybe. I mean, yeah, I'm not so sure.
Probably knew. I mean, he probably approached them.
Yeah, or could be just that's part of his arsenal, his tool set is knowing that stuff, right?
I just thought that was amazing information to hear and see.
Yeah,
too, right.
But that's what's great about him is like he's so methodical. Like he's passionate about it, but he's also methodical in what he does, right? I mean, like to get to the levels of success of Chris and Kate, it's not by accident, right? People think, oh, you're gonna go pitch somebody this thing. No. They gotta go ahead of time. They gotta research all the possible comparables. They gotta research every possible counter that they're gonna get, and by research I mean like they gotta look for these examples, right? That like you're talking about that he gave earlier on, like. You got to know this stuff because if you pick up the phone and somebody counters you saying, "Oh, it's too much," you have to know which examples to use as a counter, right? All these things are important, and it's why it's really impressive, because they're not where they are because they got lucky, right? I mean, there is definitely luck involved in this industry, but there's no consistent luck, right? You know, if you sell one domain, it certainly can be luck. That's why, you know, when people are starting, they have 100 domains, you know, sometimes I say, you know, if you haven't sold any, it doesn't mean you have bad domains, right? Because it takes time. You know, even, you know, the average domain investor sells 1-2% domains a year, some a little bit more, but, you know, the more it goes up, the more rare it is. I think, who was it? It was Michael Gilmore. We have too many Michael G's in this business. Michael Gilmore mentioned that the average sell-through rate of the industry is like 0.4, right? That includes people who don't sell anything, though.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know, at that price point, you know, it's it's you know, you 1-2%, but
You mean like me? I don't sell anything either.
you sell stuff, but well, I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, you need to sell at a certain price point. I totally lost track of where I was. My mind's a little bit.
But hey, Arif, I'm gonna have to drop from video.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut it down.
Thank you so much for everything that you do. Again,
My pleasure.
Sure, I'll listen still, but I just can't be on the video. But appreciate it, man. Talk to you
Sounds
soon.
good, bud. Yeah, later. All right, so I'm gonna end the recording and the YouTube. Thanks for watching. Again, go to live.domainierweek.com and it takes you to YouTube. You can join us again tomorrow. Just refresh the screen at the on the channel at 1 o'clock or right before 1 o'clock, and the video will magically appear. And that's it. So thanks for watching. Go to Domain Podcast for all the other stuff. Subscribe there to join us in the future.